Chapter 1198. It was a silent night. Lily didn't wake up until 9 o'clock. When she turned over, she found that Yi Qianqian was nowhere to be found. He picked up his phone and opened WeChat. He immediately saw the message that Yi Qianqian had left for him. "Sisai, we're eating at the restaurant downstairs. Come down when you wake up." It was sent 5 minutes ago. Looking at the message, Lily subconsciously thought of Ming. Ming didn't seem to have any money on him. Apart from the hotel, she didn't seem to have left him anything. He didn't even have clothes. Then, Lily remembered that she had already called his mother yesterday. By now, she had probably been picked up. Lily got up and yawned, feeling a little funny. Worrying about nothing. After washing up, they went downstairs. After Lily found them, they had breakfast together, and then she led them to the surrounding scenic spots. In the morning, they went to a beach. The fishy and salty sea breeze blew over, causing them to shiver from the cold. Fortunately, they were fully prepared today, and their bodies were all wrapped up tightly. Lily and Yi Qianqian took off their shoes and walked to the beach. Looking at the ebb and flow of the tide, Lily wanted to go down, but she was afraid that it would be too cold. In the end, Yi Qianqian dragged him into the water and stepped on him. The cold made him feel good. Lily felt so stimulated that her bladder was about to explode, and her whole body trembled. Old Mrs. Shen looked into the distance and shouted, "Lily, the water is too cold. Don't go in. It's not good for your health." Lily's heart warmed. She smiled brightly and waved at old Mrs. Shen. "It's all right. It's not that cold. Come on, it's time to eat." Old Mrs. Shen took out a huge backpack. "Come on, let's have a picnic." Although the old lady was not young, she often had the temperament of a child. In the morning, when I heard that there was going to be a picnic, I was so excited that I almost jumped up. When Lily saw this, she quickly pulled Yi Qianqian onto the shore, wiped her feet, put on her shoes, and ran over. As soon as she sat down, Lily's phone rang. The caller was from the city, and the number was from a landline. Lily took a look and seemed to have guessed something, but she wasn't so sure. After all, Ming's mother should have taken him home by now, right? Lily hesitated before picking up the phone. "Hello. Hello, may I ask if you're Miss Yu?" It was a very professional female voice. Lily replied, "I am." "Wait a moment." Then there was a commotion on the other side, followed by a man's voice. "You." Without a doubt, it was that person. Lily frowned and looked around. She stood up and walked a little further away. Her tone wasn't very pleasant as she asked, "What do you want?" The man on the other end of the line didn't seem to notice Lily's impatience and said calmly, "I'm hungry, and I don't have money to eat." "What does it have to do with me? You're the one who brought me here. Of course it's none of your business. You registered your ID card yesterday. I can sue you for abandoning a disabled person." Ming was confident and didn't look like he was begging for help at all. Abandoning a disabled person? Lily's lips twitched. It was obvious that she couldn't accept this sentence. "Then go ahead and sue me. Anyway, I called your mother and let your mother pay for you." Chapter 1199. Ming's words carried a tinge of grievance and resentment. He sounded so pitiful. She had thought that he wouldn't be able to accept the fact that he couldn't see. Who knew that he would accept it so quickly? He kept calling her a disabled person. That was even worse than her. "Hasn't your mother gone to look for you?" Lily clearly didn't believe him. Based on Qiao Ziqing's protective nature, how could she not have arrived by now? Ming could hear the suspicion in her voice. He shook his head and said, "No." "Why? Are you sure that you called my mother? You're not lying to me, are you?" Before Lily could speak, Ming continued, "Lying to a disabled person? Lily, can you be any more beastly?" Lily was speechless. "Come quickly. I'm borrowing the hotel's phone to make the call. If you don't come, I'll starve to death here." With that he hung up. "EXM. He hung up?" Lily suddenly felt a surge of anger. She was so angry that she laughed. What right does this guy have to order me around? He was the one who chased me away, and he was also the one who pestered me. What right does he have? If I starve to death, I'll starve to death. It's as if I've never been hungry before. Since we've already broken up, Why can't he be more straightforward? He's done it once, twice, and now he's sticking to me again. Even I feel cheap. I've already informed his mother. Whether he lives or dies, I don't care. Yu Lily's eyes darkened. She turned her phone off and returned to her friends' group to continue her picnic. Shen Jilia saw her obviously angry expression and handed her a box of biscuits. As he ate, he asked, "Who is it?" "Nothing." Yu Lily picked up a biscuit and took a bite. She felt a little strange. As she sipped her drink, she asked, "Could it be the friend who called you out last night? What kind of friend is this? Why are you so angry?" It was just a casual question, but the moment it left her mouth, Yu Lily's expression darkened even more. When Yi Qianqian saw the expression on Yu Lily's face, she immediately shut up and said, "Pretend I never said anything." "No." Yu Lily bit the biscuit and took a drink from behind her. When old Mrs. Shen saw that Yu Lily was clearly in a bad mood, she quickly changed the topic and started discussing where they were going to visit that afternoon. After the four of them finished their picnic, they packed up their things and took a car to another famous scenic spot. During that time, Yu Lily didn't turn on her computer even once. However, everyone could see that Yu Lily was absent-minded the whole afternoon. Shen Jilia thought that she was in a bad mood, so he led the women to a dessert shop. "I heard that when a woman is in a bad mood, she'll feel much better after eating desserts." Shen Jilia handed the menu to Yu Lily and asked with a smile, "How about ice cream?" However, when Yu Lily heard those words, she felt even more uncomfortable. He picked up the phone and turned it on. More than 10 missed calls popped up. There were mobile numbers, landline numbers, and without exception, they were all from the same city. This guy. Don't tell me he hasn't eaten yet? Looking at the time, it was already past 4 in the afternoon. If he hadn't eaten for the entire day, he would definitely be famished. What if he starved to death? Chapter 1200. Yu Lily was shocked and immediately covered the phone. When she turned her head, she saw Shen Jilia's doubtful gaze, but there was a hint of understanding in it. She felt even more guilty. Everyone knew that she and O Ming had broken up. Old Mrs. Shen had heard every word that O Ming had said to her. If she knew that the caller was O Ming, it would be awkward. Yu Lily shook her head. A friend. Although she said that, she still felt guilty. Was this considered a lie? It was a lie, but it was also a white lie. When she turned her head and saw Yi Qianqian's disbelieving gaze, she felt extremely guilty. She picked up the phone and said, "Wait for me. I'll make a call." Under the strange gazes of the three of them, Yu Lily walked out of the dessert shop and called the landline number immediately. The phone was quickly picked up. "Hello, Sheraton Resort Hotel." Sure enough, Yu Lily thought about her words and said, "Hello, my surname is Yu." Before Yu Lily could finish her self-introduction, the receptionist interrupted and said, "Miss Yu, are you looking for Mr. O?" "Yes." "He is now in the lobby of the hotel. The room he stayed in last night automatically checked out. Please come and pick him up quickly." Hearing that, Yu Lily felt even more guilty. The receptionist noticed that Yu Lily was silent, so she continued, "It seems that Mr. O hasn't eaten or drunk anything today. The staff here brought him water and food, but he didn't touch them." This guy. Yu Lily's heart ached when she heard that. She asked, "Did no one come to the hotel to look for him today?" "No, he only looked for you today." "No one else came to look for him," the receptionist said. "I see. Thank you." "You're welcome. Please come quickly. Mr. O's clothes are too thin. It's really inconvenient for a blind person." At the end of the sentence, Yu Lily could clearly hear the rebuke in her voice. Yu Lily's heart ached. After responding, she walked back into the dessert shop. Under their strange gazes, she picked up her bag and said, "I'm going out for a while. I'll be back later." "Are you going to see the friend from last night?" Old Mrs. Shen looked at Yu Lily and said with a straight face, "Whether it's a boy or a girl, why don't you let the youngest accompany you?" After old Mrs. Shen finished speaking, Shen Jilia stood up as if it was his duty to do so. "That's right. I'll go with you. I'm not familiar with this place, so it'll be more convenient to have a man with me." Yu Lily knew that they were concerned about her, but the place she was going and the people she was going to meet made her feel awkward. How could she let Shen Jilia follow her? Yu Lily bit the bullet and shook her head. She smiled awkwardly and said, "There's no need. I'll be back in a moment. You guys go ahead and eat first. With that, Yu Lily walked away quickly. Old Mrs. Shen looked at Yu Lily's anxious footsteps, and her doubts deepened. Shen Jielia stood up and said, I'd better go take a look. You guys can order something to eat. Ha! Yi Qianqian's eyes widened. Stalking? That's not a good idea, is it? Chapter 1201. Shen Jielia reached out and knocked on Yi Qianqian's head. Then he picked up the coat on the chair and said, I'm going. You wait here. With that, he followed behind Yu Lily. Yu Lily didn't notice that Shen Jielia was following her. After taking a taxi, she went to the hotel where O Ming was. When she arrived at the hotel, it was almost 5:30. As soon as Yu Lily entered, she saw O Ming in the reception area of the left lobby. At that moment, O Ming was wearing only the thin purple silk pajamas that he had worn the day before. At that moment, he was sitting on the sofa with a man sitting next to him. There was a radio on the table, and it was playing opera in a low volume. When Yu Lily saw him, her heart, which had been worried for a long time, suddenly relaxed. Walking quickly toward that place, Yu Lily's anger was getting bigger and bigger. Her footsteps became heavier and heavier. Facing the man in front of her who had no focus in his eyes, she was angry that he didn't live up to her expectations. In a huff, Yu Lily took off her down jacket and threw it at O Ming's face. When the man next to her saw this scene, he looked at Yu Lily with a smile and asked, Miss, are you the young man's girlfriend? Yes. Yu Lily didn't answer, but O Ming spoke first. The man stood up and patted his thigh. After picking up the radio, he said with a sigh, Then I'm leaving too. My wife is still waiting for me. Thank you. O Ming thanked him sincerely. When Yu Lily saw this, she smiled at the man and said, Thank you. I'm sorry for the trouble. The man waved his hand and said, What can't a young couple talk about? Your man's eyesight is bad. You went too far by throwing him into the hotel. You can't do this again in the future. Yu Lily was embarrassed and quickly explained, He is not my man. But as she spoke, she saw Shen Jielia walking toward her not far behind the man. Even if Yu Lily had 10 brains, she would never have thought that Shen Jielia would follow her. Looking at Shen Jielia's steady steps, Yu Lily's face suddenly became hot. Yu Lily could imagine the look on her face as the temperature hit her. When Shen Jielia saw Yu Lily's face suddenly turn red, he found it a little funny. At the same time, he looked at her meaningfully and asked, Why didn't you wait for me? Yu Lily felt even more embarrassed. Before she could think of a reply, Shen Jielia walked up and pulled the down jacket that was covering O Ming's body. He said, How can you wear women's clothes? However, he was unable to pull that piece of clothing back even though he was pulling it like that. O Ming tugged on the down jacket. His eyes were a little hollow as he looked forward, but his face was indescribably gloomy. He asked, Why are you here? Why can't I be here? Shen Jielia's eyes turned cold, and he forcefully pulled the clothes over to him. O Ming didn't have much strength, especially after starving for so long. How could he compete with Shen Jielia in brute force? Chapter 1202. However, O Ming didn't take it. With a wave of his hand, the down jacket fell onto the sofa beside him. He said, Yu Lily, give me the jacket. When Shen Jielia saw this, he laughed and asked, O Ming, can you see me? As he spoke, he stretched out 5 fingers and waved them in front of him. Are you really blind? Although Shen Jielia was teasing O Ming, Yu Lily's heart suddenly felt very uncomfortable. She reached out and pulled Shen Jielia back. In a low voice she said, Enough. O Ming can't see now. Don't bully him. When Shen Jielia heard that, his eyes became even colder. But then, as if he had no choice, he went forward to pick up the down jacket and put it on O Ming. However, O Ming's face became even darker. He pushed Shen Jielia away and coldly said, Don't touch me. Shen Jielia took a step back and looked at Yu Lily helplessly. He shrugged and said, I didn't bully him. Now, the blind man is bullying me. I'm not the one bullying the blind man. O Ming stood up and reached out as if he wanted to touch Yu Lily. However, Shen Jielia suddenly stood in front of him and said, Why are you sitting here without any clothes on? Aren't you cold? You still have the mood to come out for a vacation in your condition? Isn't your mother worried about you?
Although his tone was calm and even full of concern, in O Ming's ears, there was only sarcasm and mockery.
O Ming gritted his teeth. His face was dark, but his voice was calm. He said, "Shenjilia, what are you doing here?" "I came with Lily."
Shenjilia's words were full of laughter, but there was an indescribable sense of pride and provocation in them.
"So, she asked you to help, didn't she?" O Ming stood up. Under Shenjilia's surprised gaze, he picked up Shenjilia's jacket and covered it with one hand. He said, "I've been hungry for a long time. Take me to eat."
O Ming's expression was much calmer than before.
Such an attitude was beyond Shenjilia's expectations. Shenjilia looked at O Ming with interest. He put his hands in his pockets and asked, "What do you want to eat?" "You Lily, what do you want to eat?" O Ming asked. You Lily was suddenly called. She was stunned for a moment and then reacted. "Aren't you the one who has been hungry all day?" "I'm not hungry."
"Let's go."
Shenjilia tugged on O Ming's shirt and said, "Since we don't know what to eat, let's go to Chongqing Hot Pot together." "No, that's too spicy." O Ming had been hungry for a whole day, so he couldn't eat such spicy food all at once. His stomach wasn't very good to begin with. If he ate such a stimulating thing, he definitely wouldn't be able to take it.
You Lily's words were almost blurted out.
After she said it, she realized that something was wrong. Shenjilia looked over and said seriously, "It's okay. My stomach is much better now." When Yu Lily heard that, she knew that Shenjilia might have misunderstood something, but she was happy to go along with what he said. She smiled awkwardly and said, "Even so, you can't eat it. If you eat too much, your stomach won't be able to handle it." Shenjilia smiled and nodded his head.
"I'll do as you say."
However, there were bound to be people who were happy and people who were worried. Hearing their ambiguous words, O Ming clenched his teeth, straightened his back and tensed up. Chapter 1203. Yu Lily thought so too. When she heard Shenjilia's proposal, she immediately nodded. When she turned to look at O Ming, she found that his expression didn't change much at the moment. That meant he didn't object. Yu Lily walked in front. The more she thought about it, the more strange she felt. With Chao Ziqing's protective character, how could she ignore O Ming? Even if she delayed it, O Ming should have been taken back by now. The more she thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. She turned to Shenjilia and said, "Take him to dinner first. I'll make a phone call."
"Okay." Shenjilia smiled and waved at her.
"I'll call you later and tell you where it is." Yu Lily nodded and walked away. The smile on Shenjilia's face gradually disappeared.
He turned to look at O Ming, who was unwilling to leave.
There was no expression on O Ming's face, but his temperament was very gloomy. His whole body was filled with dangerous displeasure. "Why don't you walk? Are you lame?" Shenjilia's words were very impolite. He sneered. "Since you've broken up, can't you stop? Please, Master O, there are so many women in this world. Why don't you let go of Yu Lily? Can you go and harm other women? The two of you are really not suitable. It's not up to you to decide whether it's suitable or not." O Ming's voice was very calm. "I think it's very suitable." "Then what do you think she is? A broken shoe? You can have and throw her away whenever you want?" "She is my woman." O Ming's voice was calm.
When he said these words, his expression was indescribably serious.
"Come on, who can be your woman?" Shenjilia looked at the blind man with a gloomy expression. "Now Yu Lily is my girlfriend. I hope you won't pester her anymore. It's not up to you to decide." O Ming stepped forward and said calmly, "She loves me. As long as I am alive, she can't be with you. I won't give up on her. You should give up." Shenjilia looked at the calm blind man in front of him and felt a little unreasonable. He shook his head and said, "Can you have a little self-awareness? Do you think you still have the right to pester her? You're already a cripple. Who do you think you're worthy of?" He couldn't see, and his hand was broken. Even if his hand would recover sooner or later, what about his eyes? There were too many uncertainties. How could anyone gamble in such a situation? O Ming didn't say anything. "No one is obligated to be with you. Yu Lily isn't yours. She's a free woman. Fortunately, she didn't get married to you. Otherwise, She'd have to spend the rest of her life with a blind man. That would be too miserable. Xueqi sneered. Didn't you know your place before? Is there any use in regretting now?
There is no medicine for regret in this world.
People like Ming were proud and conceited.
Xueqi had originally thought that in such a situation, it would be enough to defeat him.
Unexpectedly, Ming's toughness was much stronger than he had imagined.
He had survived so quickly and even chased her all the way from Kingstown to here. However, Ming had already dug his own grave. All he needed was for Xueqi to fill it up for him, and then he would truly be consigned to eternal damnation.
Chapter 1204. No matter how proud and complacent Ming was, he was just a blind man. If he couldn't see anything, how could he be proud? Unexpectedly, when Ming heard this, he acted as if nothing had happened and was indifferent. Ming groped his way forward, and his footsteps seemed a little cautious. Xueqi was stunned to see him brush past him. That's not up to you to decide. Why did you add so much drama to yourself? His voice was indifferent, but the sarcasm in it was obvious. Does you Lily know that you're so narcissistic? Such an attitude was far beyond Xueqi's expectations. He had thought that Ming would be angry, furious, or even cursing him. Xueqi had expected such a reaction from him. However, none of it happened. Ming walked in front. His figure was thin, but his back was very straight. The accident had made him lose a lot of weight. However, even looking at his back, Xueqi felt that he had been played by him. His anger immediately overflowed. Xueqi didn't know where this inexplicable feeling came from, but the anger in his chest became more and more intense. No, I can't be angry. It would be too ungentlemanly of me to be angry with a blind man. Xueqi took a deep breath and watched Ming walk toward the main road in front of him. He had no intention of stopping. Seeing his back like this, Xueqi was still so angry that he gritted his teeth. He quickly walked up to him and pulled him back.
His actions were rough as he shouted, "If you go any further, you'll be hit by a car and die.
Since you're blind, you'd better stay put." When Ming heard that, he obediently stood there and didn't move.
For some reason, Xueqi found that Ming was particularly well behaved that day, but his heart was even more stifled. It was as if a lump of cotton had been stuffed into his heart, blocking his anger.
It couldn't go up or down, and it was indescribably uncomfortable.
"Where's my woman?"
Ming asked.
Xueqi pulled him toward a nearby restaurant and asked impatiently, "Where did you get your woman?"
Ming knew that he wouldn't admit it, so he simply changed the way he asked, "Where's you Lily?"
"I don't know."
"Are you blind too? Won't we know once we take a look?" Xueqi was infuriated.
He shoved him and said angrily, "How can a blind man like you be so confident?
Do you think I can be a clairvoyant and see everywhere?" After being pushed by him, Ming appeared to be much calmer.
Patting the place he had pushed, he snorted and said, "If you don't want to look, then don't look."
"Why are you angry?"
Xueqi felt as if he had swallowed the fire in his mouth.
He felt an indescribable sense of suffocation. Gritting his teeth, Xueqi stretched out his hands and gestured angrily in front of Ming's neck. He was so angry that his face was twisted. Xueqi wasn't sure if he was hallucinating, but he seemed to see the corners of Ming's lips curl up. Xueqi became even angrier.
He put his hands down and coldly asked, "What are you laughing at?"
"Did I smile?"
He laughed.
"Well, I suddenly thought of something fun," Ming said leisurely as he stood there. "Why are you reacting so strongly? Can't you let me laugh?" Xueqi wanted to strangle him even more.
He exhaled and said, "Let's go."
"Didn't you say you haven't eaten? Let's go eat." "Where's you Lily?"
"She hasn't come yet."
"You go and see." "Where did she go by herself?"
"Take care of yourself first, you damned blind man."
Chapter 1205. Even Xueqi himself felt a little scared when he thought about it. His footsteps gradually slowed down. Xueqi turned his head and looked at Ming's eyes. At that moment, Ming's eyes were empty, unfocused, and without purpose. With such a pair of eyes, he must be blind. Xueqi frowned.
He stretched out 2 fingers and waved them in front of Ming.
"How many fingers are these?" When Ming heard that, he seemed a little surprised.
Then he said calmly, 5.
When Xueqi heard that, he felt that this guy was pretending to be blind.
He asked suspiciously, how did you know?
No idiot would wave 2 fingers in front of a blind man, right?
Xueqi's face darkened.
You were pretending to be blind.
As he spoke, Xueqi's eyes were fixed on Ming's face and his eyes, for fear of missing any details. However, Ming's eyes were still blank and unfocused.
He looked. It didn't look like he could see it.
Under Xueqi's suspicious gaze, Ming chuckled and said, so did I guess right or wrong?
Xueqi didn't say anything.
He still stared at Ming's face. Ming raised his eyebrows and asked in a mocking tone, are you really that retarded?
You're wagging your fingers around?
Xueqi was speechless.
Xueqi turned around uncomfortably and retracted his fingers.
Then, he pulled Ming toward a Cantonese restaurant not far away.
Behind Xueqi, Ming's lips curled into a triumphant smile. It was very shallow and fleeting.
Xueqi suddenly thought of something. He suddenly turned his head and looked at Ming. When he saw that Ming's expression didn't change, he looked around and pulled Ming toward a Sichuan restaurant. However, as soon as they entered the door, Ming immediately stopped and pulled Xueqi back.
He said, don't eat spicy food.
How did you know? Xueqi looked at Ming with a triumphant expression.
You were pretending to be blind, weren't you?
Ming asked, is there something wrong with your nose, or is there something wrong with your brain?
Can't you smell such a strong smell?
Xueqi was skeptical.
He sniffed.
It seemed like there was indeed quite a bit of smell. Xueqi was a little reluctant, but he quickly pulled him out again. After following Xueqi into the dining room, Ming obediently sat down at Xueqi's table.
The waiter quickly served them tea and the menu. Yu Lili hadn't returned yet.
Xueqi tossed the menu to Ming and said, order whatever you want to eat.
Ming reached for the menu and put it aside.
His eyes were unfocused as he asked, what kind of restaurant is this?
Cantonese cuisine.
Xueqi looked down at his hand and asked, you can't smell it this time?
There's the smell of a purifier here.
Xueqi blushed with shame. He took a whiff and realized that there really was a little of it. Xueqi took the menu and muttered to himself, damn blind man.
His nose is pretty sharp.
Chapter 1206. Ming was so hot that he sucked in air. The cup rolled a few times before it fell to the ground and shattered.
Xueqi was shocked and frowned.
Soon, she took out a tissue to wipe him clean and pulled him up. She pulled Ming's hand up and saw that his skin had been scalded red. The waiter quickly came over to help clean up. Seeing the red skin on Ming's hand, he said, sir, do you need some ice to apply to your wound?
Okay, thank you, Xueqi said on Ming's behalf.
Unexpectedly, Ming gently pushed Xueqi away and said, why didn't you remind me that there was boiling water in front of me? When Xueqi heard that, he felt a little baffled and said, who knew you would knock it over? You deserve to be scolded to death. Ming's face darkened, and he said, Xueqi, even if you're testing me, there should be a limit. I only have one hand left, and it hurts like hell. How am I going to eat later? His voice was sonorous, and his interrogative intent assaulted everyone's senses.
Xueqi's face darkened.
Do you want me to feed you? Ming didn't say anything and sat down again. Seeing this, Xueqi knew what Ming meant.
Does that mean Yu Lili should feed it?
What a joke. Xueqi sat back down unhappily. Soon, he received a call from Yu Lili. Xueqi gave Yu Lili the address and the table. He hung up the phone and poured Ming a glass of water. Yu Lili called Ming's mother, but it wasn't Qiao Ziqing who answered the phone. It was Ming's father. When Huijin heard what Yu Lili had to say, he looked shocked and said, I see. Lao Wen is in Fujian too. Perhaps Ming's mother asked Lao Wen to fetch him. We'll be at ease leaving it to Lao Wen. As Yu Lili listened, she found it a little strange, but she couldn't pinpoint exactly what was strange about it. After exchanging some pleasantries with Huijin, he hung up. Yu Lili called Wen Fenglin again, but he seemed to be busy on the other end. Yu Lili called him a second time before he picked up the call. Lili, what's the matter?
Uncle Wen, I heard that you are also in Fujian. Are you here to pick Ming up?
When Fenglin heard that, it was as if the matter had just occurred to him. He said, Yes. If you hadn't reminded me, I would have forgotten about it. Xiao Qiao asked me to bring Xiao O back, but I'm busy right now. Are you with Oming now? If I don't fulfill my promise to Xiao Qiao, I'm afraid there will be some trouble in the future.
Lily, you're a good girl.
Do me a favor and take care of Xiao O first. When I'm done with my work, I'll bring Xiao O back, okay? When Lily heard that, she felt a little awkward and said, Uncle One, I've already broken up with Oming. If I continue to take care of him, I'm afraid.
It's okay. Lil O likes you the most. He won't mind.
But she minded.
Oming's mother hates me.
It's better if I don't get involved with her.
Chapter 1207. Lily held the phone that had been hung up on. She had mixed feelings. How could this be?
Oming's mother had passed the phone to Oming's father, and Oming's father had pushed the matter to Uncle One.
Was Oming really their child? He must have been picked up.
Leaving a blind man in such an unfamiliar place, wasn't this committing a sin? Then,
Lily remembered again. Oming had a wide network of friends.
He had friends from all over the world. Although they weren't close friends, there would definitely be a lot of people trying to curry favor with Oming after hearing his name. For such a person, as long as he made a phone call, would he be afraid that he wouldn't be able to eat or drink well? Or could it be that he didn't want others to see him like this? The more she thought about it, the more likely it seemed.
Lily suddenly felt a little sad.
In the end, it was all because of his pride.
Lily had no choice but to go back.
After making a phone call to ask for Shen Jilia's current location,
Lily rushed there. As soon as she arrived, Lily found Oming holding a towel in his hand. That hand didn't look right.
Lily couldn't help but look at it and asked, What's wrong with your hand?
It was scalded by boiling water. Oming put down the towel in his hand and took the initiative to open his hand. It looked a little serious.
There were blisters on the back of his hand, and his palm was also red.
How did it get scalded like this? Lily frowned and reached out to take Oming's hand. Seeing that it was obviously in pain, she didn't feel comfortable. She turned to look at Shen Jilia and said, You can't even look at a blind man properly.
You're really...
He wants to test if I'm really blind. Oming was the first to complain, but he didn't finish his sentence. Oming didn't need to say more. Lily could guess what he was going to say next. So, he put the boiling water in front of him and deliberately scalded him? When Lily heard that, she looked at Shen Jilia with a layer of reproach. When Shen Jilia heard that, his eyes widened and he quickly retorted, Hey, can't you finish your sentence? You were the one who knocked it over. Don't accuse me wrongly. But you asked me several times if I was pretending to be blind, and then I spilled the water. It really makes people think too much. Oming said confidently.
His eyes were unfocused, but his voice was sonorous.
F***ck, are you saying that I deliberately harmed you?
I didn't say that.
You said it yourself, Oming said calmly. He didn't sound angry at all. Shen Jilia felt even more wrong than Do-yi, especially when he saw the obvious distrust in Lily's eyes. He felt even more hurt. This damn blind man. You even know how to complain first. Now that Oming was in a weak position, it was human nature to choose to trust the weak. Shen Jilia had already lost the initiative. No matter what he said, Lily would assume that he was quibbling. What was even more frightening was that after Oming complained, he used the trick of retreating in order to frame him to jump into the pit himself. F***ck. What the hell is this? Oming is such a schemer. Shen Jilia was furious, but he didn't know what to say at that moment. Chapter 1208. Lily didn't continue the topic. Oming was a little disappointed. However, it seemed that Shen Jilia already had a small flaw in Lily's heart, didn't he? Oming sat calmly. There was ice in the towel in his hand, so his hand didn't hurt so much. He said, I haven't ordered yet. I was waiting for you to come. I can't see the menu, and this guy doesn't want to read it to me. Shen Jilia said, When did you let me read it? You know I can't see it, but you still threw the menu to me. What do you mean by that? Oming asked. Then, Shen Jilia caught Lily's gaze again.
Shenjilia was about to go crazy. He thought that Oh Ming would really be honest after he was blinded. He didn't expect that it was all an act. He pretended to be honest in front of me and waited for you Lily to come back to attack him. This method is too despicable. But it is indeed the truth. Shenjilia couldn't even say a word in rebuttal. Especially after he caught you Lily's gaze, he was even more angry at Oh Ming. Then I'll order, you Lily said. She called the waiter and listed a few of Oh Ming's favorite dishes. After that, she gave the menu to Shenjilia and asked, "What do you want to eat?" Shenjilia's mood had been almost completely blown away by Oh Ming. After randomly ordering a few dishes, he put the menu back. They were now sitting in a booth, facing each other. 2 people could sit on each side. Oh Ming sat alone, and Shenjilia sat with you Lily. The dishes were quickly served. Oh Ming held the towel in his hand and said calmly, "My hand was scalded. I can't hold the chopsticks. You Lily, feed me." When you Lily heard that, she looked at Oh Ming's hand. It did look a little serious. It was red, swollen, and blistered. It must be very painful. Unexpectedly, before she could react, Shenjilia stood up and walked to the side of Oh Ming's seat. He said, "Your hand was injured because of me. Let me feed you." Shenjilia took Oh Ming's bowl and said, "What do you want to eat? I'll feed you." You Lily pursed her lips and smiled. She said, "Then I'll leave it to you. Feed it well." As she said that, she picked up the chopsticks and ate slowly. "No, I can't eat if he feeds me. It doesn't matter. You can't see it anyway. You can just treat me as a stunning beauty." Shenjilia picked up his chopsticks and picked up some food. "Come on, open your mouth." Oh Ming looked away with a look of disgust. "There's no beauty as ugly as you. This is the first time I feed someone. Eat well." Oh Ming's mouth was tightly shut, and his eyes were closed. He had a look of despair on his face. "Do you want to eat it or not?" You Lily glanced at him and lowered her head to eat. Shenjilia put down his bowl and picked up his chopsticks. He sighed and said, "Why did you have to do that? What's the point? If he angered you Lily, he wouldn't be able to get away with it. Maybe you Lily would just leave him behind, and then, she would go back to the hotel with him and leave the little blind man alone and helpless." Shenjilia's heart was in turmoil, and he looked proud. "Let's do it. Let's see who's more ruthless." Chapter 1209. Oh Ming's stomach ached and he called out, "You Lily, I'm hungry." You Lily looked up at Oh Ming from the corner of her eyes. Then she looked down and said casually, "Then eat." "Who wouldn't let you eat? Feed me." His voice and tone were indifferent, no different from usual. But at this time, it sounded like she was acting coquettishly. "Shenjilia, feed." When Shenjilia was called, he immediately straightened his back and volunteered, "I'll feed you." Oh Ming was reluctant, but when he thought of his current situation, "Do you want to feed me to death? Killing is against the law, big brother. If I want to kill you, I have to find a cleaner way." Shenjilia rolled his eyes. "So are you going to eat or not?" "I want to drink soup." Shenjilia reluctantly gave him a bowl of soup and placed it in front of him. "Feed me," he said in a commanding tone. Shenjilia was unhappy and said, "Who are you talking to? You hurt my hand like this. Of course, you're the one who should feed me." Oh Ming's tone was indifferent, without much emotion. Shenjilia smacked his lips and turned his head to call out, "Waiter, bring me a straw." Oh Ming was speechless. You Lily was speechless. The straw was quickly brought over. Shenjilia stuffed it into Oh Ming's mouth and stuck it into the bowl for him to drink. Oh Ming seemed particularly well behaved that day. Such a comical scene was rarely seen. You Lily couldn't help but smile. She quietly picked up her phone and recorded a short video. "Does it taste good?" You Lily asked. "I can't. There's residue at the bottom." Oh Ming didn't seem to realize that he had been secretly filmed. He lowered his head and said, "Can't you help me hold the bowl? My hands aren't that long. Let Shenjilia hold it for you." Shenjilia saw that you Lily was recording, so he quickly covered his face and said, "Just make do with it. If you're blind, don't act like that. Go back to sleep after eating."
Then Shenjilia picked up his chopsticks and picked up some food and rice.
He lifted O Ming's chin and said, "Open your mouth and eat."
O Ming looked reluctant, but he still opened his mouth and ate the rice. Good boy, eat more. Shenjilia picked up more vegetables and rice and stuffed them into O Ming's mouth. O Ming hadn't even finished his first spoonful, and now another spoonful came. His entire mouth was stuffed. Yu Lily chuckled and asked, "Is it delicious?"
However, O Ming's mouth was full of rice, and he couldn't speak at all. Ha 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 ha. Shenjilia finally let out a sigh of relief.
Is it delicious? Would you like some more? As Shenjilia fed her, he texted Yu Lily, "Don't I look like the landlord's silly son?" Yu Lily couldn't help it and almost spat it out. One of them held onto the sofa and laughed so hard that his shoulders shook, but he didn't make a single sound. When Shenjilia saw her smile, he laughed along with her. But neither of them made a sound. O Ming chewed the rice and quietly squeezed the hand holding the towel. This meal, Shenjilia fed O Ming until he was full. After leaving the dining room, Shenjilia took O Ming's hand and went to Yu Lily's side, whispering something. From time to time, O Ming could hear Yu Lily's laughter. The displeasure and resentment in his heart grew deeper and deeper. Chapter 12:10. When Feng Lin got out of the taxi and stood at the majestic and elegant entrance. His face was full of emotion. Rui Art Association. There was a gathering every 3 years, and the time of the gathering wasn't fixed. This time, when Feng Lin had received a last-minute notice and had come to Fujian to attend to O Ming's matter. The moment he got out of the taxi, he saw a few luxury cars stopping in the distance. Compared to them, his style seemed a little shabby. When Feng Lin didn't mind. He carried his bag and walked up. Among the people who got out of the luxury cars, there were people about his age. There were also people from O Ming and Yu Lily's generation. There were quite a number of them. It looked like the scale of the event this time was much larger than the one he had attended 9 years ago. When Feng Lin swaggered in, and quite a few people recognized him. A young man walked up. When he saw Wen Feng Lin, his eyes were filled with surprise. He asked, "Are you Senior Wen Feng Lin?" Wen Feng Lin looked at the young man and realized that his face was somewhat familiar. For a moment, he couldn't place him. He smiled and nodded his head. "That's me. Hello. My name is Zhen Li. My father often mentions you to me." "And your father is?" "Zhen Xianlang." When he heard the name, Wen Feng Lin immediately understood. He laughed heartily and shook hands with him. "I didn't expect his son to be so big already. You must be 25 this year, right?" Zhen Li was a little embarrassed. He shook his head and asked, "Do I look that old?" When he heard that, Wen Feng Lin found it a little strange and asked, "Did I remember wrongly?" I'm 21 this year. After the new year, I'll be 22. Let's go, Senior One. This way, please." This time, it was Wen Feng Lin's turn to be embarrassed. He smiled and nodded his head. There were quite a number of people who recognized Wen Feng Lin. After all, the name of the wandering artist was too well known. As the associate director of the Art Association, Zhan Xianlang had been inside for a long time. When he heard others mention Wen Feng Lin, he was surprised and quickly came forward. After more than a decade, Zhan Xianlang looked very different from before. When they were young, both of them were handsome and dignified. After not seeing each other for so many years, the two of them had become more and more casual. Zhan Xianlang had a crew cut. His hair was short and black, just like when he was young. He was tall and strong and looked very healthy. His eyes were big and brimming with energy. His facial features looked well defined, but there were obvious wrinkles on his face. When Wen Feng Lin saw Zhan Xianlang, he felt a sense of familiarity. When Zhan Xianlang saw Wen Feng Lin, the joy in his heart overflowed onto his face. He went forward and gave his good friend, whom he hadn't seen for many years, a big hug. "It's been a long time, brother." Wen Feng Lin chuckled and patted him on the shoulder. "That's right. I didn't expect you to have a second child. I thought you'd never get married." When Zhan Xianlang heard this, the smile on his face froze slightly. Seeing that something was wrong, Zhan Li quickly said, "Dad, it's time to eat. Let's go inside." "Yes, let's go inside."
Chapter 12:11. Brothers in the past, love rivals in the past, old friends now, and memories now. In the end, he was still an outstanding young man. With a family like the Jeanne family, how could he possibly remain unmarried for the sake of a woman? Wen Fenglin had already expected this, but he couldn't help but feel disappointed. Xian, you chose the wrong person. Yu Lily had arranged for Ming to stay so far away from the hotel because she didn't want Shenjilia to know. Now that Shenjilia knew, and Yi Qianqian also knew that the friend she was talking about was Ming, Yu Lily brought Ming to the hotel she was staying at. There was a large shopping mall near the hotel. Yu Lily brought Ming there to buy a few changes of clothes before she checked into a room with him. When they returned to the hotel, they realized that old Mrs. Shan and Yi Qianqian hadn't returned yet. Regardless of whether they called Shenjilia or Yu Lily, the result was the same. It was normal for one person to be like that, but if both of them were like that, then something wasn't right. Yu Lily and Shenjilia were a little worried. Yu Lily said, "Why don't we go look for them together? It can't be that both of their phones ran out of battery, right? If it was really just that their phones ran out of battery, then everything would be fine. But what if?" It was a very scary thing to think about. Shenjilia was even more afraid. "I'll go look for them. Wait for me. I'll bring Ming to the room, and then we can go together." After Yu Lily said that, Ming's grip on her hand tightened. Shenjilia looked at Ming. He was a little reluctant, but it wasn't good to leave him alone. After thinking about it, he said, "Forget it. You'd better stay here. If I can't find them, then you can come with me to look for them." Yu Lily looked down at Ming, who was holding her hand tightly, and nodded her head. "All right. Be careful." After Shenjilia left, Ming's whole body relaxed. Yu Lily clearly noticed the subtle changes in him. She was a little amused. She took the keycard and took him to find a room. After entering, Ming didn't want to let go and said, "I haven't showered in a few days, and I'm not wearing proper shoes. I'm so dirty." His meaning couldn't be clearer. He just wanted Yu Lily to help him bathe. Yu Lily pretended not to understand. She threw the clothes she had just bought for him onto the hotel bed. She opened the package of the men's boxers and threw it to him. Then she found a bathrobe for him and said, "Go take a shower. My hand is burned." "Look." Ming stretched out his hand and said, "It hurts. It's burning. I think it'll hurt even more if I touch hot water." Indeed, there were blisters. Yu Lily pulled his hand over and felt the pain just by looking at it. "Uncle Wen said he would come and pick me up after he's done with his work, but I haven't heard from him yet. By the time he comes to help me bathe, I'm sure I'll be stinking." When Yu Lily heard that, she looked up and asked, "Have you contacted Uncle Wen?" "Yes, he seems to be very busy recently." Yes, Uncle Wen had repeatedly reminded her to take good care of Ming. Ming didn't look like he was being taken care of at all. Chapter 12:12. When Ming heard that, he smiled and nodded his head. "Okay." Yu Lily took off her coat first. She was wearing a thin white long shirt and a pair of tight black leggings. She unbuttoned her cufflinks and rolled up her sleeves. She took off Shenjilia's coat and said, "Take off your clothes first." "Okay." Ming was very cooperative. After Yu Lily unbuttoned his shirt, he followed her into the bathroom. They had known each other for 7 or 8 years. Even if she saw him naked, Yu Lily wouldn't be too shy. After all, she was already used to it. But her current identity. It was a little awkward. Taking a deep breath, Yu Lily walked in to fill the bathtub with water, but she found that the room didn't even have a bathtub. "How do I wash it? A shower?" Ming, there's no bathtub. Why don't you go to my room to wash?" "I've already taken off my clothes. It's so troublesome to put them back on." "Let's do it this way. What if the water splashes your hands?" "I won't get wet if I'm careful." Ming didn't care. He walked forward, opened his arms and said, "Come on, let's finish this quickly." Indeed, it was too inconvenient for Ming to put on clothes with his hands. Yu Lily couldn't be bothered. She turned on the shower head and tested the temperature. After confirming that the temperature was suitable, she let Ming hold the shower head. Yu Lily took off his clothes quickly and helped him wash his hair. But Ming was too tall. Yu Lily couldn't reach him at all. She reached out and pressed his shoulder.
Squat down. Okay. Oh Ming was very obedient. He was so obedient that even Yu Lily felt a little surprised. After washing his hair, Yu Lily stuffed the shower head into his hand and grabbed a towel to help him dry his hair. Unexpectedly, Oh Ming held the shower head and sprayed it on Yu Lily's body as if he didn't have eyes. Yu Lily exclaimed and took a step back. But it was too late. Most of her body was already wet. Did you get wet? Oh Ming seemed to realize something and stood up apologetically. I can't see. Oh Ming's attitude was so sincere that Yu Lily couldn't get angry. She sighed, dried his hair and said, It doesn't matter. It has to be washed anyway. Then, shall we shower together? As he spoke, he turned the shower head to the side and poured water over Yu Lily's body. Yu Lily swallowed all the words that were on the tip of her tongue. Forget it, he can't see anyway. Let's bathe together. It's not like we haven't bathed together before. It'll be fine after I send him to bed later. She stood on her tiptoes to help him dry his hair. Yu Lily didn't notice the distance between them. As for Oh Ming, he could clearly smell the fragrance that belonged solely to her. Looking down, Yu Lily was soaked. Her thin white shirt stuck to her body, outlining her exquisite and well-proportioned figure. The neckline was slightly open, and the seductive snow-white skin was overflowing with seductive fragrance. The white bra was clearly outlined, and the plump peach that was wrapped in it was ready to come out. It made one's blood boil. Chapter 12-13. Hearing this, Oh Ming came back to his senses. He touched his nose and said blankly, I have a nosebleed. Yu Lily was frightened. She stood on her tiptoes and reached out to touch his forehead. Then she touched his face and asked, Where are you feeling unwell? Quick, I'll help you get dressed. Let's go to the hospital. Yu Lily was scared out of her wits. No, I feel uncomfortable. Oh Ming touched his nose and then poured the shower head on his nose. Yu Lily was stunned. She seemed to think of something and subconsciously lowered her head. Oh Ming was shocked. He quickly pulled her and said, I'm fine. Let's continue. Are you sure? Yu Lily reached out and touched his face, and then touched her own face, but she couldn't feel anything. She patted him on the shoulder and said, Squat down a little. When Oh Ming heard that, he bent his legs. Yu Lily put her forehead close to his, trying to feel his temperature. However, it didn't seem to make much difference. If he didn't have a fever, why would he have a nosebleed? Before Yu Lily could figure it out, Oh Ming moved his lips forward and kissed her lips accurately. Yu Lily was stunned. Before she could react, Oh Ming held her in his arms and stood up straight. Yu Lily was held by his waist, so she was unprepared to be pulled up. She subconsciously stood on her tiptoes. Oh Ming gently pushed her against the glass door of the bathroom. His lips kissed her lips, and his movements were hot and eager. Yu Lily was firmly suppressed and couldn't say anything. She stared at him and pushed him, and her body struggled. The shower head was thrown to the ground, and the water kept splashing up, drenching them both. The temperature climbed inch by inch. Oh Ming's thigh pressed her against the wall, and his hot big palm was strong on her body, from the waistline to the bra. Yu Lily struggled more fiercely. However, unintentionally, her thigh clearly touched a hot and hard spot. At that moment, Yu Lily finally understood the reason. What a beast! He's blind, but he's still in heat. She opened her mouth angrily and bit down hard on his tongue. Oh Ming was caught off guard. His tongue was bitten, and he released her out of habit. Pervert! Yu Lily spat and reached out to push him. You're so troublesome just to take a bath. Don't expect me to help you bathe in the future. Oh Ming covered his mouth and cried out, It hurts! As he spoke, he loosened his grip, revealing the bright red blood on his palm. Yu Lily glanced at him, but then she seemed to think of something and stared into his eyes. Oh Ming frowned and refused to look at Yu Lily. Yu Lily felt even more strange. She stretched out her finger and waved it in front of his face as she asked, Can you see? Otherwise, why would he have a nosebleed for no reason? Otherwise, why would he have such a huge reaction? When Oh Ming heard this, his heart skipped a beat. He neither shook his head nor nodded. His eyes were unfocused as he stared blankly ahead and asked, Do you care so much about this matter? His words were filled with hurt.
When Yu Lily saw this, she quickly waved her hands and explained, "No, I just feel strange. How can you have such a big reaction when you can't see?" Chapter 12:14. Yu Lily's face heated up when she heard that. Oh Ming stepped forward again and said, "I think of the time when you and I were together. When we were in the bathroom having fun, that feeling. It was really great." Yu Lily's face heated up even more. Looking at Oh Ming's approaching face, she pushed him away and yelled, "You pervert! Are you going to take a shower or not?" "Yes." Oh Ming leaned over and said in a low voice, "Didn't we say we'd shower together?" With that, he caressed Yu Lily and whispered, "Let's shower together." Yu Lily slapped his hand away, but Oh Ming's hand seemed to be fixed there. The familiar and unfamiliar feeling made Yu Lily blush even more. She felt a little uncomfortable talking. She pushed him away and said, "I'll help you shower first. Get out of my way. I'll go get the shower gel. Let's do it together. I'll help you take it off." With that, Oh Ming's hand fumbled with her buttons. His large palm brushed against her skin through her clothes, causing Yu Lily to tremble sensitively. "Your hand." Yu Lily looked down and saw the blisters on his hand. "Doesn't it hurt?" "It hurts." Oh Ming lowered his hand and said, "If it hurts, you don't have to use your hand." With that, he squatted down and lowered his head to feel it inch by inch. His warm breath fell on her skin, and Yu Lily felt her body tense up. The throbbing feeling spread from the skin that he had touched to the rest of her body. Oh Ming lowered his head and bit her button. She didn't know if it was intentional or not, but his teeth always grazed her skin. It didn't hurt, but it brought about a different kind of wonderful feeling. Yu Lily's breathing slowly became rapid, but she quickly regained her senses. She pushed his head away and said righteously, "Oh Ming, I only listened to Uncle One and took care of you for the time being. Don't think too much about it. I have no intention of getting back together with you." "But I do." Oh Ming leaned forward again and whispered, "I want to get back together with you. I want to be with you. I want to marry you. I want to have children with you." It's the same words again. When Yu Lily heard that, she no longer found it romantic. Hearing that, he snorted coldly and said, "Saying the same thing once will have an effect, but saying it again and then standing you up. Is it fun?" "I'm serious, Yu Lily. Really, I'm serious. The Civil Affairs Bureau is open tomorrow. Let's go back and get our marriage certificate, okay?" Oh Ming hugged her with one arm and whispered in her ear, "Enough." Yu Lily pushed him hard and snorted, "Do you think I will still believe you? How many times have you said the same thing? You can secretly count it yourself." Oh Ming felt a pang of pain in his heart. Yu Lily's reaction was both unexpected and within his expectations. Fortunately, he had yet to reveal his final trump card. Oh Ming took a step forward and said, It's my fault. I'm sorry. I didn't believe you. I'm blind and disabled, so I feel inferior. I didn't want to hold you back, so I said those things to you." Chapter 12:15. Such self-ridiculing words fell into Oh Ming's ears and made him feel even more uncomfortable. The woman in front of him clearly had reddened eyes and was on the verge of collapsing with tears, but her voice didn't reveal anything at all. If he really couldn't see, he would definitely be deceived by her. But he could see and he saw everything. This woman has always been so stubborn. It's not shameful to show weakness occasionally. Can't she show weakness a little? Oh Ming's heart was stuffy and painful. He lowered his eyes and still did not dare to look up. He whispered, "I know I have done a lot of wrong things. Give me another chance, okay? I should say this to you." Yu Lily held his face in her hands and finally couldn't help it. Her voice was a little choked. Tears fell uncontrollably. Yu Lily quickly raised her head and held back her tears. After taking a few deep breaths she said, "Give me a chance to choose, Oh Ming. I don't want to be with you anymore." He always asked her to give him a chance, and she gave him one. But every time, it would only result in deeper humiliation. Every time. "I will deal with my mother. We won't go home in the future. We will live outside, so you won't meet my mother." Oh Ming reached out and pulled Yu Lily's hand. "Let's go back to Kingstown tomorrow. We will go to the Civil Affairs Bureau, get married. Oh Ming, you are always like this.
Yu Lily shook him off. Talking to yourself. You always think that what you do is right, and you never care about other people's feelings. Yu Lily looked at Oh Ming in front of her, chuckled, and bent down to pick up the shower head. She lifted his hand with the cast and rubbed the shower head on his body.
She said, Uncle Wen should come to pick you up tomorrow.
If you want to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau, just go. It doesn't matter who you get married with, whether it's Shen Manting, Zhang Manting, or Li Manting. I know my identity. I will not interfere with your life in the future, nor will I enter your world, so you don't have to think about comforting me. I have money now, and I am a cartoonist. I don't need to depend on you to live, and I don't need you to be responsible for me. After you go back, remember to live a good life and pretend that I never existed, okay? His voice became softer and softer. Yu Lily's throat was sore, and she felt uncomfortable. Tears fell down, and Yu Lily finally couldn't hold back her tears. But in the end, she did not cry out. Biting her lower lip, she expanded the water and washed it over Oh Ming's body. Oh Ming took in Yu Lily's reaction. He pulled her into his arms and whispered, No, I won't allow it. There is no Shen Manting, Zhang Manting, or Li Manting. I only want Yu Lily. I don't want to marry anyone except you. However, Yu Lily smiled bleakly and hung up the shower head. For a moment, the water was rushing toward Yu Lily's head. Yu Lily closed her eyes and unbuttoned her clothes one by one. Soon, she took off her top. Oh Ming quickly lowered his eyes. His throat felt dry, and his Adam's apple bobbed up and down. Feigning ignorance, he reached forward to touch it. Chapter 12:16. Oh Ming's body stiffened. For a moment, he didn't know how to react. Yu Lily saw his obviously stiff body and his obvious reaction. She bit her lower lip. She went forward to take a bath towel and put it on his head. You can go out. With that, she opened the bathroom door. Take 1 step forward, turn left, and take 3 steps out of the bathroom. After about 4 or 5 steps, you'll reach the bed. Oh Ming's body didn't move. When Yu Lily saw that, her lips curled into a mocking smile. I'll get ready. Get ready? Prepare for what? Oh Ming had an ominous feeling in his heart, but when he heard that, he didn't ask much. He felt his way out. Yu Lily turned the water on to the maximum and took a shower before walking out. Oh Ming had already put on his bathrobe and boxers. He seemed to have sensed her coming out and turned his head in her direction. Yu Lily was wrapped in a bath towel. She walked forward barefoot and looked at Oh Ming. Then, she let go of the bath towel. Oh Ming's body stiffened, and he sat in the same place without moving. Yu Lily didn't notice his reaction. Looking at his unfocused eyes, she pushed his shoulders and fell on the bed. Then, her soft lips fell on his lips. Oh Ming had never imagined that Yu Lily would do that. Subconsciously, he reached out and hugged her. Yu Lily's kiss didn't go deep. She gently moved down and sucked on his Adam's apple. Oh Ming's reaction, which had calmed down with great difficulty, suddenly rushed up again, and it was fiercer and more urgent than before. His reaction was too violent, and Yu Lily could clearly sense the change in him. Then, she slowly kissed him inch by inch. Oh Ming hugged her and buckled her up with his legs. He pressed her down with one hand to bring her closer to him. The warm and soft body pressed against his, and the wonderful feeling made his heart itch. But he didn't rush to do anything to her. The strange feeling in his heart grew stronger and stronger. There was something wrong with this woman. Oh Ming knew her too well. The more she acted like this, the more he felt that something was wrong. What do you want? To give it to you. Yu Lily's words were straightforward. Don't you want it? I'll give it to you. Yes, very much. But, how did Yu Lily change so much? This was not normal. Is there a but? When Yu Lily heard that, she rubbed her body against his, easily igniting his anger. In a low voice she said, But, after I give it to you we'll really break up. Just think of it as having a breakup party. Breakup party? The fire in Oh Ming's heart suddenly froze. What do you mean? After this, don't ever see me again. Yu Lily didn't look at his expression. She pressed on top of him, lowered her head, and kissed his chest. You and I are not from the same world. Forcing ourselves to be together won't lead to a good result.
Who said that?
Oh Ming gritted his teeth and said angrily, You said I was self-righteous.
What about you?
Surnamed you, you're even more self-righteous than me.
Whatever you say.
In any case, there would be no future between them. Chapter 12:17. What last time? What breakup sex? When she said those things, did she ask for his permission? Oh Ming was furious, but he didn't know what else to say other than to reject her. Oh Ming turned around and faced his back to Yu Lily.
Yu Lily was pushed away, and for some reason, she let out a sigh of relief.
Looking at Oh Ming's curled back, she asked, You really don't want to? Oh Ming was swollen to the point of pain. How could he not want to? Oh Ming had no doubt that if there were any problems in the future, it would definitely be because of today. But if it was the last time, he would rather not. He didn't want anything else. What he wanted was her, not the last time, and definitely not the breakup sex. Oh Ming pulled the blanket over his head and remained silent. Yu Lily picked up the towel she had just taken off and covered her body with it.
Then I'll leave first.
Leave. When he heard that word, Oh Ming was even more sensitive and jumped up. He turned around and reached out to grab her. Opening his arms, he pulled Yu Lily into his embrace and said angrily, Why are you leaving? Who said you could leave? With that, he carried Yu Lily and turned around to fall onto the bed. You're not allowed to leave. Aren't you blind? Yu Lily's back was facing him. She could clearly feel the warmth coming from him. She coldly smiled. How can a blind person hug me so accurately? This is called telepathy. Oh Ming didn't have the slightest awareness of being exposed. He hugged her and nuzzled her neck. I can feel wherever you are. Otherwise, how do you think I chased you all the way here? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? Yu Lily turned her head and looked into his eyes. At the same time, Oh Ming closed his eyes and said, If you don't believe me, you can try. I can find you wherever you are, regardless of whether I have eyes or not. Yu Lily let go of his hand and wrapped herself in the towel and took 2 steps back. Oh Ming closed his eyes and reached out to grab Yu Lily. Yu Lily's eyes darkened. She took 2 steps to the left. At the same time, Oh Ming reached out to the left. Yu Lily went to the right, and Oh Ming did the same. She was pretty sure she hadn't made a sound. But Oh Ming really seemed to have a telepathic connection. He could clearly sense her location every time. Throughout the whole process, Oh Ming did not open his eyes. Yu Lily stepped forward to stand in front of Oh Ming and reached out to touch his cheek. Would I never see such a proud man in the future? Would such beautiful eyes never be able to see again in the future? Yu Lily couldn't tell if she felt sorry for him or if she sympathized with him, or if she felt both. Oh Ming closed his eyes and held her hand. In a low voice he said, In the future, even if I am blind, I will always remember your face. I will never forget you. Oh Ming, do you love me?
Love, she blurted out without hesitation.
How much?
Without you I will die.
When Yu Lily heard that, she burst out laughing. He moved his hand away and tried to retract it, but it was held tightly. Oh Ming's eyes were still closed as he held her hand. You don't believe me.
Then do you trust me?
I believe you.
Still without the slightest hesitation.
I don't love you. I don't want to be with you. Chapter 12:18. His eyes were full of pity. His dark brown pupils were bright and as deep as a lake at night. Yu Lily was clearly reflected in his eyes. When Yu Lily saw his eyes, her heart trembled slightly, and an unknown emotion surged. It rushed to her heart, and then it rushed to her eyes. The liquid suddenly filled up, and in a flash, it drooped down. Oh Ming looked at her and covered her face with one hand.
He whispered, Why are you crying?
Hearing that, Yu Lily was even more sure that he had seen it. Just a moment ago, she was still thinking about what he should do in the future. At that moment, Yu Lily felt that her heart was like a roller coaster, and the ups and downs were indescribable. Yu Lily couldn't help but pout, and the grievance in her heart suddenly came out. She opened her mouth and cried, and big drops of tears fell. When Oh Ming saw this, he felt even more distressed. He pulled her over with one hand, kissed her wet hair and whispered,
Don't cry. The extremely gentle voice had its own unique charm. Her originally wavering heart was suddenly hooked back to him. Now, even if she wanted to, she couldn't. Yu Lily lay on his shoulder and cried like a child. She shouted, "You liar!" When O Ming heard the childish yell, he smiled and coaxed her in a low voice. "Yes, I'm a liar."
You clearly saw it. Why did you lie to me? Why did you do this to me? Yu Lily raised her fist and punched him twice on the back. She didn't use much strength, and it didn't cause any pain. O Ming hugged her tighter and whispered, "I was afraid that you would hate me. How could I trick you into coming back if I didn't hurt myself? Even if you hurt yourself, I don't want to talk to you. If I didn't hurt myself, I'm afraid you wouldn't even look at me," Yu Lily said. What O Ming had said that day was too cruel. He thought that he would really be like that for the rest of his life, leaving no way out for himself. Who knew? After waking up from a coma for 2 days, he could suddenly see. This kind of surprise brought O Ming not only joy, but also regret. He regretted his cheap mouth, regretted his impulsiveness. Based on Yu Lily's character, if she found out that he had recovered and wanted to get back together with her, she would probably run even further and faster. Now, although it wasn't the best time to confess, he couldn't pretend anymore. If he continued to pretend, he would be exposed sooner or later. He might as well confess himself and perhaps suffer less. If the incident in the afternoon happened a few more times, it would be enough to make him suffer. Recalling Shen Jilie's prank in the afternoon, O Ming gritted his teeth. After crying for a few minutes, she quickly wiped her face, straightened up, and pushed him hard. O Ming was pushed, but he didn't loosen his grip. Instead, he tightened his grip. "Let go." "I won't." O Ming's voice was calm, but there was no room for dispute. "The reason why I confessed so quickly was not to let you go." Yu Lily grinned. "Since you're fine, there's no need for me to take care of you anymore. You can let go. I'm going back." "Go back." O Ming's eyes darkened, and he pulled her hard. "Your man is here. Where else are you going? Didn't we break up?" Chapter 12:19. O Ming's voice was domineering, with an indisputable tone of command. "I don't want to." Yu Lily pushed him away again. "You have no sincerity at all. Why should I get back together with you?" When O Ming heard that, his eyes lit up. His heart was filled with joy. His lips unconsciously curled up as he asked, "What kind of sincerity do you want?" Yu Lily tried to shake his hand off, but she couldn't. With that movement, the bath towel, which wasn't wrapped tightly, fell off. O Ming's gaze naturally fell on it. His eyes darkened, and his emotions surged. His gaze was filled with a desire to possess her. He was like a hungry wolf that had seen meat. Yu Lily's hair stood on end under his gaze. She quickly covered her chest with her remaining hand. But by covering the top, the bottom was exposed. Under O Ming's naked gaze, Yu Lily's face became redder and redder. She reached out and covered O Ming's eyes. "You're not allowed to look." O Ming's only hand was holding onto Yu Lily's arm. Now that his eyes were covered, he couldn't move her away. His lips curled up in a good mood as he said, "Why can't I look at my woman?" "Who's your woman? You're so shameless." Yu Lily's voice was full of disdain. However, when he said these words, the corners of his lips curled up. Unable to control his emotions, his heart was overflowing with uncontrollable chaos. At that moment, Yu Lily felt like she was about to fly. "What should I do? I'm so happy." She was so happy that she didn't know what to do. Covering O Ming's eyes, Yu Lily looked at his lips. She tiptoed forward and planted a kiss on his lips. However, after such a kiss, Yu Lily greedily wanted more, and more. Her soft lips moved around his. Yu Lily stuck out her tongue and gently licked it. O Ming's Adam's apple bobbed up and down. Subconsciously, he tightened his grip on her wrist. He pulled her over and easily held her in his arms. But he didn't dare move again. "In your eyes, what's the difference between me and an inflatable doll?" Yes, of course there was. He had never used a doll. She had always been the only woman. He had never even touched a doll. However, if he behaved too horny, this woman would definitely be unhappy. Therefore he could not move, could not move. Yu Lily kissed him for a long time, but Ming didn't respond at all. Feeling defeated, she bit his lips in revenge. Ming felt the pain and quickly pursed his lips. He suddenly felt a little uncertain about what this woman was thinking. Lily gritted her teeth and hit him angrily. What? You were the one I wanted just now. Don't you want it now? When Ming heard that, he was stunned for a second or two. Then he asked carefully, Can I? Lily felt even more suffocated. She had already taken the initiative to this extent, and he actually asked her if he could? How come I've never seen him so honest before? Annoyed, Lily pushed him away forcefully and shouted, No! Ming was caught off guard and stumbled, but he immediately curled his lips into a smile. He pulled her back and threw her onto the bed. Chapter 12:20. The pair of eyes in front of her were as bright as the stars, bright and full of spirit. Such a pair of eyes. This is Ming. Lily's heart quietly rippled with joy. She quickly pushed him away and shouted, Get lost! Together. Lily turned over and was about to crawl away, but Ming quickly put his arm around her shoulders. Ming was not wearing any clothes. He pressed her under his body, and his hot lips fell on her smooth white back. Lily turned her head and saw that his left hand was still in a cast. She quickly calmed down. Ming also clearly noticed her gaze. He leaned forward and kissed her gently, whispering, It's okay. Does it hurt? It doesn't hurt. Really? Yeah. Ming gently pressed her against him. Really? His lips reached out and kissed her neck. His movements were gentle and slow. The feeling of numbness spread all over her body little by little. Lily was lying on the bed. Under his gentleness, she couldn't help but raise her head and squint her eyes. She reached back and put her arms around his neck. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. Ming's movements froze. At the same time, Lily was also stunned. Turning to look at the door, Lily and Ming looked at each other. They both thought of the same person at the same time. Ding dong. The doorbell rang again, and it sounded a little hurried. Lily quickly got up and pushed Ming away. After rolling over, she pulled the quilt over her body. She was naked, so of course she couldn't go out to see anyone. But her clothes were just soaked. Lily was a little worried. She looked at Ming and asked, What should I do? Ming looked at Lily, narrowed his eyes and asked, You and Shenjilia are together again? When Lily heard that, she felt even more confused. She immediately retorted, How is that possible? She became even more annoyed. What do you mean by again? I've never been with him, okay? Then why do you look like you're having an affair? Ming looked at her with disgust. Then he leaned forward, squinted his eyes and whispered, Isn't it normal for us to be together? Even if we do something, it's none of his business. The doorbell rang twice more, and this time, it sounded even more urgent than before. I can't. We broke up. Everyone knew that they had broken up. If this was seen, how embarrassing it would be. When Ming heard that, he became even more unhappy. He bent down and looked down at her face. He narrowed his eyes and asked, When did you break up again? Have you forgotten what you said in your house? Lily didn't look scared at all. She stared at him and asked, Do you dare to remember what you said at that time? I forgot. Ming pulled her up. Don't remember that kind of thing. I had no choice but to say those words. At that time, I thought I would be blind for the rest of my life. My mother didn't like you, and I didn't want to hold you up, so Lily had already guessed it, but she hadn't expected Ming to explain it in such a way. Lily pursed her lips and was about to say something when the phone in her bag rang. Without a doubt, it was Shenjilia. Lily covered her body with the quilt and bent over to pick up the bag that had fallen on the ground. Before she could pick it up, Ming picked it up. He looked at it and saw that it was indeed Shenjilia. Chapter 12:21. Lily was shocked. When she was about to grab it, she heard a voice coming from the other side. Lily. It was Shenjilia's voice. Lily is taking a shower, Ming said calmly as he walked away. As he spoke, he didn't forget to glance at Lily. Lily's face quickly turned red, and she shut her mouth and didn't speak. Shower. In Oming's room. Shower? What does that mean? Yeah. Oming didn't even blink when he talked big.
He waved his hand at Yu Lily and motioned her to go to the bathroom.
I'll open the door for you now. Wait a minute. Why didn't you open the door just now? I just pressed the doorbell for so long. If you wanted to open the door, you could have already opened it, right? Or you.
Oming put on his bathrobe, tied it, and walked toward the door. When Yu Lily saw that he was really going to open the door, she covered the quilt and was about to go crazy. She quickly jumped out of the quilt and ran toward the bathroom. At the same time that the bathroom door was closed, Oming opened the door of the room. Xueqi immediately rushed in at the same time that he opened the door. He looked around and finally his eyes fell on the door of the bathroom. When he got closer, he heard the sound of water coming from inside. Xueqi was angry and looked at Oming. Oming was wearing a white bathrobe and holding a mobile phone in his hand. His eyes were unfocused, and he didn't know where to look as he closed the door. But there was an indescribable pride in his expression. Xueqi felt something was wrong and gritted his teeth.
Why is she taking a shower here?
She was wet, Oming said concisely. When Xueqi heard this, his expression was even more desperate.
Wet.
Wet. Oming. Xueqi stepped forward angrily and grabbed the collar of Oming's bathrobe.
What did you do to her?
Compared with Xueqi's excitement, Oming seemed much calmer. His gaze was unfocused, and he wasn't looking in any direction. However, such an expression seemed more like a provocation.
What can I do? I can't see, and my hand is broken. What else do you think I can do?
When Xueqi heard that, he felt that it made sense. Her heart relaxed a little, and she unhappily let go of Oming and pushed him away. Oming straightened his collar and said calmly, "Why don't you ask her what she did to me? Why is it wet?" Xueqi, who had finally managed to calm himself down, became even more furious. He roared, "Oming! Wet, showering, doing something to him. Could it be? Yu Lily went by herself. No, it can't be.
Yu Lily is not that kind of woman. Why are you so excited?"
"I'm so scared that I don't even dare to say it." Although he said that, he didn't seem afraid at all. Instead, it was filled with provocation. Xueqi calmed himself down and asked, "What do you mean by that?" "She helped me take a bath and accidentally got herself wet, so now she's taking a bath. Is there a problem?" Xueqi's expression darkened, and he asked, "Help you bathe?"
Chapter 12:22.
Undressing, putting on clothes, showering, and wearing underwear. Isn't that? Xueqi couldn't even imagine that scene.
He couldn't accept it.
The woman he liked was helping another man put on his underwear, and they used to be boyfriend and girlfriend.
Who could stand that?
Stepping forward angrily, Xueqi reached out and grabbed Oming's collar again. He gritted his teeth and roared, "Oh, are you shameless? You let a girl do this for you, and you said it so loudly.
What do you think Yu Lily is?"
Oming was grabbed, but he didn't have much of a reaction. Hearing that, he laughed and said, "I didn't say it very loudly, did I?"
Why did you have such a big reaction? Yu Lily is my girlfriend. Isn't it normal for her to help me bathe and dress?
Bah! Xueqi couldn't stand it anymore, and his spittle splashed out. The smile on Oming's face disappeared. He reached out and wiped his face, pushing Xueqi away. "Mr. Shen, don't go too far." "Who is the one who went too far?"
Didn't you break up?
"Why are you still so entangled?"
Why?
"Is it because you're blind that the women who used to be entangled with you don't want you now? So, you can only pester Yu Lily, right?" Xueqi sneered. "That's right. Who can stand your mother's mouth? Both mother and son have the same mouth. Serves you right that no one wants you." The bright smile on Oming's face had disappeared, and it was replaced by an inexplicable smile. A pair of eyes looked forward without focus. Xueqi knew that Oming couldn't see him, but he inexplicably felt a sinister chill. Oming looked calm and said, "In the face of the crazy bark of a loser, I can only give you sympathy."
You.
Xueqi's heart suddenly began to explode. He raised his fist and punched Oming's face in front of him. However, before his fist landed, He heard the sound of the bathroom door being opened.
Shenjilia's movements stopped abruptly. He turned his head and looked over. The first thing he saw was a snow-white shoulder.
Before he had time to see more, he heard Yu Lily scream, and then the sound of the bathroom door being slammed.
Yu Lily did it on purpose. Ming could tell that she was trying to calm Shenjilia down. Shenjilia had no idea what was going on.
He stared at the door of the bathroom, and his mind was filled with images of fair skin.
Her white, misty skin was beautiful. Tempting and beautiful, it lingered in his mind. Shenjilia felt his mouth go dry. Suddenly, a huge force came from his side. Shenjilia staggered and fell to the ground.
Ouch!
Shenjilia screamed.
He looked up and cursed. "Oh Ming! Shenjilia!"
Yu Lily's voice came from the bathroom. Shenjilia was at the door of the bathroom.
When he heard the voice, he looked up and replied, "Here."
"Is Yi Qianqian back? Can you ask her to bring me a set of clothes? My clothes are all wet."
When Shenjilia heard that, he immediately realized that Ming must have done it on purpose.
Chapter 12:23. Shenjilia quickly left.
After Ming closed the door to the room, he knocked on the bathroom door and said, "Let's go."
"Open the door and let me in."
"No.
I don't have anything to wear. It's not like I haven't seen it before. Open the door. I have a secret to tell you." Yu Lily's back was against the bathroom door. She felt a little chilly without any clothes on. When she heard Ming's words, she hesitantly opened the door. Unexpectedly, Ming suddenly came in and held her with one arm. He lowered his head and kissed her on the lips. Yu Lily was completely unprepared for such a surprise attack. Her eyes widened, and her hands were on Ming's chest. She struggled a little. Unexpectedly, Ming let go of her at once.
Looking at her arms that were half covering her body, his eyes darkened.
Shenjilia saw it just now. Saw it? Yu Lily was stunned, but she quickly understood what Ming was talking about. Yu Lily blushed. She could clearly see the displeasure in Ming's eyes and the obvious jealousy that surrounded him. Ming felt even more annoyed when he saw her delicate behavior.
He pushed her against the sink and asked, "Why did you suddenly open the door?"
"I can solve it myself. I heard that the situation wasn't right, so you opened the door and let the guy see?" Ming gritted his teeth in anger and pinched her nose. The guy's face changed when he saw it. It was like a male dog in heat. "I only stretched out my hand. I shouldn't have seen anything." "You're still talking. I saw it all." Thinking of how Shenjilia had seen her bare shoulders, her heart felt like it had been scratched by a cat. "Really?" Yu Lily felt a little guilty and shrank her neck. Seeing her like this, Ming felt even more depressed. He lifted one of her legs and gritted his teeth. "Vixen." Yu Lily was shocked and quickly pushed him away. She shouted, "What are you doing? They'll be here soon." Ming hugged her tighter and kissed her neck. He pressed his lips against her skin and whispered, "I can't wait anymore. I've been holding it in for a long time. Don't you know?" Yu Lily pushed him and looked at the open bathroom door. She lowered her voice and said, "Are you crazy? What will we do when they come in?" "I can't get in. I locked it." Ming's lips moved lower and lower, igniting clusters of flames. Soon, they burned brightly. Yu Lily hugged him and couldn't help but dance with his movements. Ding dong. The doorbell rang. When Yu Lily heard the voice, her body tensed up. She pushed Ming hard and exclaimed, "Stop! They're coming." But Ming didn't care. He pressed her against his waist and sank. Ding dong. Ding dong. She subconsciously clenched her fists. Listening to the hurried doorbell, she pushed him harder and harder. Unexpectedly, Ming acted as if he couldn't hear it. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. His actions were rough but gentle. Inadvertently, it had stirred up layers of emotions. The wonderful feeling made her want to cry out. Yu Lily reached out to cover her mouth. Her breath was heavy and lingering with the man in front of her, but she didn't dare to make a sound. Chapter 12:24. After all, there was a door between them,
so the sound was not loud. But when she heard the sound, Yu Lily felt even more guilty, and she felt even more excited. Oh Ming looked up and saw Yu Lily's expression of pleasure, pain, and anxiety. He smiled and was quite proud of himself. He forcefully removed Yu Lily's hand from her body and slammed it into her with all his might. Ah! Yu Lily couldn't hold back, and her throat let out a broken gasp. But she quickly bit her lower lip and lay on him to stop herself from making a sound. Ding dong! Ding dong! Ding dong! The doorbell kept ringing, and it became more and more urgent and frequent. Xueqi was outside, banging on the door and shouting, "Damn blind man, open the door! I'm here to deliver clothes." It sounded like he was really angry. Yu Lily looked up and pushed him. She gasped and whispered, "Hurry up." "All right." Oh Ming's lips curled into a smile. His already heavy movements became faster and faster. Yu Lily couldn't stand it anymore, and her breathing became more and more rapid. "Ah! Slow down." Oh Ming chuckled and slowed down a little. He whispered in her ear, "Tell him to stop knocking. It will affect my normal performance." Yu Lily's face became even redder. She stared at him and growled, "Beast!" "Ha!" Oh Ming raised his eyebrows slightly, and his voice became longer. His movements suddenly stopped. "What did you say? Beast? Ah! What are you doing? That's not how sex works. Come on, I'll teach you." "No." "Shoo, do you want him to hear what we're doing? Keep your voice down." Although he said that, his movements were not small at all. The man's suppressed breathing and the woman's suppressed voice were isolated by the door. His movements became more and more urgent, and the sound became louder and louder. It formed a completely different style from the hurried doorbell and the shouting of banging on the door. Ding dong! Ding dong! Yu Lily was knocked around, and her eyes were full of stars. The doorbell kept ringing, and she didn't know when it stopped. This was definitely the most exciting and most difficult thing Yu Lily had ever experienced. The doorbell rang again, and a woman's voice came from outside. "Lily, are you in there?" Yi Qianqian knocked on the door. When she saw Shen Jilia's furious expression, she felt some sympathy for him. How much time had passed, and this man and woman were inside? If that was the case, then these two fellows were too bold. There was no response from inside. Yi Qianqian pressed the doorbell again and shouted, "You Lily, I've brought you clothes." Just when Shen Jilia thought that no one was going to open the door, there was a soft sound from the door, and it was quickly opened. When Shen Jilia saw this, he immediately pushed the door open and entered. Oh Ming was still wearing the bathrobe, and he didn't look any different from before. Shen Jilia was so angry that he roared, "Why didn't you open the door?" Oh Ming was calm and composed. He didn't look like he had been yelled at all. He said calmly, "I don't want to open it." When Yi Qianqian saw it, she couldn't help but take another look at him. This kind of attitude is even more infuriating than directly shouting back. "So, why have you gotten over it now?" Yi Qianqian couldn't take it anymore. Chapter 12:25. "I waited for so long, and you didn't open the door?" Yi Qianqian felt that his words were not credible. She looked at him strangely and then looked into his eyes. She reached out and waved her hand in front of him. However, Oh Ming still did not respond. It was as if he did not know that Yi Qianqian was testing him. Yi Qianqian pouted and walked to the door of the bathroom. Shen Jilia wanted to come forward, but Yi Qianqian pushed him away and shouted, "What are you doing?" "I'm bringing clothes to a girl. Do you want to go in?" Hearing that, Shen Jilia subconsciously looked at Oh Ming. Oh Ming acted as if he had not heard them. He turned around and groped his way to his bed. The bed was a little messy. At a glance, it was obvious that someone had slept in it. However, whether it was one person or two people who had lain on the bed, that would be. Thinking of this, Shen Jilia was even more angry. If he had known this would happen, he would not have been so soft-hearted. Asking Yu Lily to take care of this guy was like sending a sheep to the tiger's mouth. Yi Qianqian knocked on the bathroom door and shouted, "Lily, it's me." The bathroom door opened quickly. Yu Lily reached out her hand and said, "Why are you so late?" No one opened the door. "We can't come in." Yi Qianqian was a little angry.
She pushed the door and wanted to squeeze in. But anyway, your ex-boyfriend can't see you. You can just open the door. People who don't know will think you are doing something in there. This was a half-truth, half-lie, mixed with a bit of testing. When Lily heard this, she immediately thought of what had happened, and her face suddenly became hot. That guy is so hateful. She had specially washed it with hot water and washed the sink, for fear that someone would find any traces when coming in. This must be a guilty conscience, right? Or a secret affair? Thinking of this, her face became a little hot. I'm doomed. I can't let Yi Qianqian see this. He reached out and pushed Yi Qianqian out. Don't come in. Just give me the clothes. What are you afraid of? We are all women. You have clothes and I have clothes. As Yi Qianqian spoke, she subconsciously turned her head to look at Shen Jielia. She found that Shen Jielia obviously cared and wanted to come in. She felt a little sympathy. Why won't you let me in? What are you doing inside? For the first time, Lily felt that Yi Qianqian was so gossipy. She cussed in her heart. However, since she had already said so much, if she still blocked the door and refused to let her in, it would undoubtedly arouse more suspicion. Lily thought about it and loosened her grip. Yi Qianqian pushed the door open and walked in. She found Lily hiding behind the door with a red face. She was a little surprised and asked, "Why is your face so red?" Yi Qianqian's words made Lily's heart tremble. However, he quickly pretended to be calm and snatched the clothes from Yi Qianqian's hands. He glared at her and said, "I don't have clothes to wear, so I had to turn the hot water to the maximum. How could I not turn red?" Yi Qianqian was skeptical. She looked her up and down. It seemed that other than her skin being fairer than hers, her breasts being bigger than hers, and her waist being slimmer than hers, there was no other difference. Feeling Yi Qianqian's gaze on her, Lily suddenly felt lucky that Ming was a little more anxious than usual. Chapter 12:26. She flipped through her clothes and found that they were all there. Under Yi Qianqian's gaze, Lily felt uneasy. She pushed her and said, "What are you looking at? You have them, so do I." "Yes, but they're not the same." Yi Qianqian turned her head away and said, "Go inside and put them on." "I'm going out. I failed to spy on the enemy. It seems that there's nothing. Shen Jielia is thinking too much." After she went out, Yi Qianqian looked at Shen Jielia and shrugged. "Well, it's late. Go back to sleep. I'll go back with Lily. I'll wait for you. It's not good for a girl to stay in a room with a man." Shen Jilia's eyes were full of vigilance. He looked Ming up and down with obvious disdain. Ming leaned against the headboard and ignored him. Soon, the bathroom door opened, and Lily came out. Her hair was half wet and stuck to her head. As soon as she came out, she met Yi Qianqian's and Shen Jilia's eyes. She felt her scalp go numb. "You come here," Ming suddenly said and sat up. Ming suddenly opened his mouth and sat up. His blank eyes were unfocused, and he didn't know where to look. Lily saw it clearly and silently gave Ming's acting a thumbs up. But how could she go over? Now that they had broken up, they had to find a logical time to get back together. Ignoring Ming, Lily turned around and took Yi Qianqian's hand. "Let's go back." "Yes, that's normal." Shen Jielia breathed a sigh of relief and turned his head to look at Ming provocatively. Ming looked a little angry, but he still clenched his teeth and didn't say a word. "Let's go. Have an early rest, blind man. We're going back to Kingstown tomorrow. Stay by yourself." Shen Jielia waved his hand and followed Yi Qianqian and Lily. Lily didn't look back. Shen Jielia noticed this small detail, and he finally relaxed after a whole night of anxiety. Behind the two women, and in front of the blind man, Shen Jielia didn't hide his emotions. His mood was clear at a glance. Ming watched him go out, narrowed his eyes and chuckled. Poor fellow, he really thought he had the upper hand. "Forget it, there will be time for you to cry." Yi Qianqian and Lily were sent back to their room by Shen Jielia. When she saw that Shen Jielia had left, Yi Qianqian couldn't hold it in any longer. She pulled Lily aside and asked curiously, "Hey, did you really bathe him? I heard from Shen Jielia that you even helped him get dressed and undressed. Doesn't that mean you saw everything?" Hearing that, Yu Lily felt even more guilty. Not only had he seen everything, he had also done everything that he should and shouldn't have done. However, this was not the time to lose. Yu Lily coughed lightly, glanced at Yi Qianqian, and said, "It's not the first time he's seen it. His eyes and hands are not convenient, so I—" Chapter 12:27. He. Isn't it just he? Yu Lily immediately thought of the famous comedian, Fei Yu. Smiling secretly, Yu Lily pushed Yi Qianqian away and said, "Cut it out. How long has it been?" "How is it not long? I locked Shen Jilia outside for almost half an hour. When he came to find me, I was taking a shower." Oh, his face was green. Poor thing. Yi Qianqian shook her head. "But your ex-boyfriend is also very good. Do you know what he said when Shen Jilia asked him why he didn't open the door? The soundproofing was very good, so Yu Lily didn't hear what they said outside." But with O Ming's wretched expression, Yu Lily could guess what he had said just by imagining it. "What does it have to do with me? Don't want to open the door for you?" Yi Qianqian gave her a thumbs up. Then she mimicked O Ming's expression and tone and said calmly, "I don't want to open it." Yu Lily smiled and looked as if she had expected it. She reached out and patted the pillow behind her. "Go to sleep. It's getting late." Yi Qianqian squinted and looked at Yu Lily suspiciously. "Your expression doesn't look like it when you talk about your ex, don't tell me you." "Oh, this girl has never been in a relationship. How can her eyes be so sharp?" Yu Lily turned her head and glared at her. She reached out and slapped her down. "What nonsense are you talking about? Seriously, have you ever thought about getting back together with him? Go to sleep. We'll talk about this tomorrow." She was almost exhausted. She had gotten up early, and she had been dragged into the bathroom. Now, her body was sore and aching. "You can sleep later. You tell me first." Yi Qianqian made up her mind not to let her rest. She pulled the quilt in her arms and asked, "That man is not a good person. If you get back together with him, Shen Jilia will be too pitiful. Don't you see how good Shen Jilia is to you? He likes you very much." "Boss Qianqian, I'm so sleepy. I'm really sleepy. Let me go." Yu Lily was half awake. She put her hands together and said, "Can we talk about it tomorrow?" No. She was sent by Shen Jilia. How could she go back to the organization without completing the task? But Yu Lily didn't want to talk to her anymore. She closed her eyes and looked like she was going to sleep. When Yi Qianqian saw that, she heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Tell me, do you still like that ex-boyfriend of yours?" "I like it." Yu Lily pulled a pillow over and put it under her head. "You should have heard that I'm his sugar mommy." Yes. He had heard a little about it. However, hearing it from Yu Lily's own mouth, Yi Qianqian was still a little surprised. "He raised me for 3 years. He paid for my education, food, and life. He treated me very well, really very well." Yu Lily held the pillow, raised her face, looked at Yi Qianqian, and said, "When I met him, I was only 17 years old, and I gave all my firsts to him." Yi Qianqian hadn't expected Yu Lily to go into so much detail. She didn't know what to say. There was only one thought left in her mind. It's over. Isn't there no hope for Shen Jilia? Then, will you get back together with him? Yes, of course he would. However, was it too soon to tell them that they had gotten back together? Chapter 12:28. When Yi Qianqian heard that, she immediately felt a little strange. Especially when she saw Yu Lily's serious expression. There was an indescribable feeling in her heart. This is the legendary envy, jealousy, and hate. Enough. Yi Qianqian couldn't hold it in anymore. She reached out with both hands and pushed Yu Lily away. With a disgusted look, she said, "Enough. You reek of love from head to toe. Disgusting." When Yu Lily heard that, she shook her head sympathetically. She covered her head with the quilt and turned over. She regretfully said, "The anger of a single dog." When Yi Qianqian heard that, her eyes widened. She immediately crawled under the quilt and pinched her waist. Yu Lily was caught off guard and exclaimed. Then she burst into laughter. "What are you doing? A single dog is not angry. It's jealous."
You're already an ex, but you still can't forget him. Love your sister. Yi Qianqian quickly retracted her hand and hugged Yu Lily's shoulder from behind. But to be honest, I can tell that your ex-boyfriend really wants to get back together with you. You didn't see the look on his face just now. He wanted to tie you up. How could I not know? Hearing Yi Qianqian's words, Yu Lily quietly smiled. But if he treats you like that before, if he really wants to get back together with you, don't agree too quickly. Don't show that you can't have him. Hearing that, Yu Lily was embarrassed. With her back facing Yi Qianqian, she didn't dare look back and asked, "Why?" "Why? You are a comic book writer yourself. Shouldn't you be very clear about this kind of story? Men are all the same. They don't cherish things that are too easy to get. You must keep him hanging. Don't let him think that you are cheap, and don't let him think that you are only suitable for him. If you do that, your position in the future will not be so stable." Yu Lily felt a little speechless at Yi Qianqian's words. But what made her even more speechless was that she actually felt that it was very reasonable. Then what should I do? She was already. Yi Qianqian was completely unaware and said, "In fact, people are all the same. They all have bad habits. Especially men. Men like O Ming, who are rich, powerful and handsome, all have one thing in common. That is, they are cheap. The more I can't get it, the more I want it. This feeling at first is dominated by desire, but it will slowly change. If I can't get it, it will become possessiveness, and if I can't get it, it will become a desire to conquer." As Yi Qianqian spoke, she stretched out her hand and slowly clenched it into a fist in front of Yu Lily. After the desire to conquer, it will slowly become a habit. When you get it again, there will be a kind of, it's not easy to come by, so I must cherish it. Do you understand? Yu Lily was stunned and turned to look at Yi Qianqian. She looked at her in surprise and applauded in admiration. Are people who have never been in love so imaginative? It's really great. Chapter 12:29. When Yu Lily heard that, she nodded her head cooperatively and gently comforted her. Yes, you're right. Shall we go to bed first? Yi Qianqian was even more annoyed when she heard that. She kicked her and shouted, "Get lost!" Yu Lily's leg hurt from the kick. She blinked her eyes aggrievedly and quickly hugged her. "Sister, you are my sister. Don't be angry, okay?" Yi Qianqian was only a little displeased. She wasn't angry. When he heard Yu Lily's cowardly response, he rolled his eyes at her and flipped the blanket over. "Go to sleep." Yu Lily couldn't have asked for more. She covered herself with the blanket and immediately turned around. However, even though he was sleepy, he couldn't fall asleep. His mind was filled with what Yi Qianqian had just said. Men's deep-rooted bad habits. They have one thing in common: they are despicable. The more I can't get it, the more I want it. TSK. Although Yi Qianqian didn't have any actual combat experience, she had to admit that the experience she had gleaned from the gossip was King reasonable. Yi Qianqian knew that she wasn't asleep, so she ignored her and closed her eyes to sleep. Suddenly, the phone that was charging on the bedside table rang. Then came the second, third, and fourth sound. Yu Lily covered her head and pushed Yi Qianqian. Cell phone. Yi Qianqian reluctantly crawled out from under the covers and picked up her cell phone. Just by looking at it, he straightened up and rolled on the ground like a carp. Yu Lily was shocked by Yi Qianqian's reaction. She raised her hand and slapped her across the face. "What are you doing?" Yi Qianqian wasn't in the mood to argue with Yu Lily. She read the message again and again, and her heart could no longer calm down. When Yu Lily saw her serious expression, she climbed up and asked, "What's wrong?" "My sister. Yi Yu? The little actor who had just risen to fame." Yi Qianqian didn't look too good. She looked at Yu Lily with a grave expression and said, "You're injured." Yu Lily was also shocked. She took the phone from Yi Qianqian. It was Yi Qianqian's father. "Daddy. Qianqian, where are you now? Yo-Yo got hurt at work. It seems pretty serious. Daddy. I want to see her. Come with me." Below was a piece of news sent by Yi Qianqian's father. The headline was striking frowny face that was close. Yi Yu fell from a wire during filming and was sent to the emergency room in the middle of the night. Looking at the time,
It was tonight. He clicked on it and saw what had happened at 9 o'clock in the evening. There was also a picture in the news. The red bloodstain looked shocking. Yi Qianqian had already gotten up to change her clothes. She said, "I'm going back now. My father must be very anxious. I have to go back with him to see my sister." "Are you crazy? It's already past 11 o'clock. Where would you find a car to take you back? Furthermore, Yi Yuyu is filming in the studio. She must be sent to a nearby hospital. Even if you go there now, you won't make it in time." Yi Qianqian froze when she heard that. Yu Lily took the opportunity to calm her down and said, "The most important thing for you now is to let your father settle down. Tomorrow morning, you'll take the plane to H City where she lives." Yi Qianqian thought about it and nodded. She picked up the phone and called her father. Yi Yuyu's incident had caused quite a stir in the industry.
For a moment there was a lot of discussion, and it also became a little popular on Weibo.
Chapter 12:30. Kingstown. Imperial Pavilion Villa Complex. In the huge villa, only the master bedroom was dimly lit. The warm yellow light elongated the tall figure. In the room, the distinct lines of his muscles were outlined by the black satin nightgown.
Hearing the urgent voice on the other end of the phone, the man slowly lit a cigarette.
He didn't smoke it.
He just held it between his fingers and allowed the white smoke to rise.
"GM Lee, what should we do? This movie is very important. The second female lead has a lot of scenes. If Yi Yuyu can't do it, we'll have to replace her. This person was personally sent in by this person. If they were to replace him, wouldn't it be a loss of face for this person? But, if he didn't replace her, how were they going to continue filming? Yi Yuyu's injury wasn't looking good. It would probably take at least 3 to 5 months to recover. Fortunately, it hadn't hurt her face. Otherwise, the girl's acting career would be worrying. Li Jinnan was silent for a moment. His brows furrowed slightly. He tapped his fingers on the table and asked slowly, "Have you informed her family?" "Ah." The person in charge hadn't expected that Li Jinnan's first concern would be this. After thinking for a moment he said, "I've informed them. I think her husband and parents have been informed." "Got it. Keep an eye on her and try your best to satisfy her needs." "Yes. Yes, but the director of this movie is asking for your opinion. Should we replace her or..." "Replace who?" "There's a pretty good actress in our company recently. She's as famous as Yi Yuyu. She has already gone to the director for an interview. She can replace Yi Yuyu's position." It was obvious that they had already prepared everything and were just waiting for his help. Li Jinnan suddenly chuckled.
He flicked the ash from his cigarette and said, "Replace her."
"Yes."
The person in charge finally breathed a sigh of relief.
"I'll make the arrangements then.
Goodbye, GM Lee."
Li Jinnan couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense. He hung up the phone and tossed it onto the bed.
With the cigarette between his fingers, he lay down on the bed.
Yi Yuyu is injured. Li Jinnan reached out and massaged his temples. Even he didn't know what he was feeling. She was the first woman. The only woman. But, she was already married. The reason Li Jinnan hadn't had any direct contact with her recently was to avoid arousing suspicion. However, the care he gave her behind the scenes was also a source of gossip. Many people were guessing whether the CEO of NC was interested in this small celebrity. Gradually, the rumors started to spread. Even Qin Shuhua came to ask him if he had anything to do with the girl. It wasn't easy for him to get away with it, and now something like this happened. If he specially went to H City to see her, it would definitely cause trouble again. With a heavy sigh, Li Jinnan's temples throbbed. Yi Yuyu's injuries weren't light, but they weren't serious either. He had a concussion from the fall and was still in a coma. His leg bone was slightly fractured, and there were many abrasions on his body. It looked like he was covered in blood, but fortunately, it was not serious. Yi Qianqian had caught the earliest flight over. When she heard that Yi Yuyu was well, she immediately reported it to her father. Unexpectedly, Yi Qianqian bumped into a familiar face as soon as she returned from her phone call. Chapter 12:31. When Yi Qianqian saw the expression on Shin Luoen's face,
The anxiety and anger that had been suppressed in her heart for a long time suddenly erupted. He quickly walked up to them in an aggressive manner. When the young doctor saw the state Yi Qianqian was in, he felt his hair stand on end. When Shen Luo turned to look at Yi Qianqian, he saw that her face bore some resemblance to Yi Yuyu's. He roughly knew who she was. Shen Luo. Yi Qianqian's voice was not loud, but it sounded a little fierce. Shen Luo stood there with his hands in his pockets. He looked at Yi Qianqian and raised his eyebrows. You're Yi Yuyu's older sister, aren't you? The capital is only 2 hours' drive from H City. Yuyu has been in a coma since last night. As her husband, why did you only arrive now? And with that expression, people who didn't know better would think that he was here to collect a debt. The more Yi Qianqian thought about it, the more she felt that it was not worth it. This guy is really annoying. Fortunately, Yi Yuyu was deeply in love with him. She had always dreamed of marrying him since she was young. She didn't expect this guy's true colors to be so despicable that he would even lay his hands on his own sister. He was simply inhumane. When Shen Luo heard Yi Qianqian's words, his face was cold and expressionless. He said, "Aren't I here now?" "You." Yi Qianqian suddenly felt infuriated. Just as Yi Qianqian was about to say something, Shen Luo suddenly walked around her in the direction of the ward. He raised his voice and said, "I'm here, but I'm still unconscious. You should save it. You've been schemed against by Yi Yuyu since you were young. How can you pretend to be a good sister? What's the meaning of this?" Yi Qianqian shouted at Shen Kua's back. However, Shen Luo had already entered the intensive care unit. Yi Qianqian stomped her foot and followed him in. Yi Yuyu wasn't particularly popular yet. She didn't have an assistant of her own, and her manager was busy with all sorts of public relations. She had no time for that. Did Yi Yuyu lie there alone the entire night? When Yi Qianqian thought of that, she felt even more indignant for her friend. Poor girl. She's not a bad person. Why doesn't anyone care about her? It was all Shen Luo's fault. Yi Qianqian was even more annoyed. When she walked in, she saw him looking down at her from above. Yi Yuyu, who was lying on the bed, had already opened her eyes. Seeing this, Yi Qianqian was overjoyed. She immediately turned around and ran out shouting, "Doctor, the patient is awake." However, Shen Luo remained standing. He had no intention of notifying the medical staff. Yi Qianqian looked at the man in front. Shen Luo looked as if he was being torn. "Yi Yuyu." Yi of the man's eyes. Shen's face, Shen, said, "Shen, Shen." The man in front of her was expressionless. Other than the coldness in his eyes, there was nothing else. "I said," Yi said, "I Shen was, Shen on. Shen Luoer." Shen Luoan stepped forward and raised his eyebrows slightly. "I thought I'd see your corpse when I came here. I didn't expect that to be the case." Yi Shen felt. His. Shen felt, Qian was. The sound of the heartbeat machine beating rapidly was a far cry from the previous calmness. Chapter 1232. Yi Yuyu's eyes turned red, and tears began to flow. Looking at the man in front of her, Yi Yuyu's heart, which had finally calmed down, began to ache again. "Shen Luoan." Yi Yuyu's voice wasn't loud, and it sounded weak. As she spoke, her head hurt uncontrollably. It was as if the vibration of her vocal cords was stirred. Yi Yuyu couldn't help but squint her eyes. She felt as if she was going to faint again. "Huh." Shen Luoan's face was full of surprise. He smiled warmly, but his eyes were cold. "Now, you don't even call me Brother Luoan? You can't pretend anymore?" Yi Yuyu's head was buzzing. She stared at Shen Luoan, and tears slipped from the corner of her eyes. The sound of footsteps could be heard from outside. Soon, a doctor and nurse came in. Yi Qianqian followed closely behind and looked at Yi Yuyu. Yi Yuyu's eyes seemed to be nailed to Shen Luoan. She couldn't look away. Shen Luoan's eyelids were gently closed, and an inscrutable smile hung on his lips. He put his hands in his trouser pockets and turned to walk out. The abnormal heartbeat on the heartbeat monitor revealed her mood swings. Yi Qianqian watched Shen Luoan walk out and felt a little regretful. "If I had known,
I wouldn't have let him in. Seeing Shen Luoan walk out, Yi Qianqian followed him.
Shen Luoan heard the footsteps behind him and suddenly stopped. With his back turned, he said, "Since you are Yi Yuyu's sister, I'll have to trouble you for the next few days."
I still have things to do. I'll pay the hospital fees until she's discharged. In other words, he doesn't intend to stay here to take care of Yi Yuyu? Yi Qianqian's eyes widened and she flew into a rage. She is your wife. Where are you going to fool around? What could be more important than your wife's life? Wife. Shen Luoan seemed to have heard a joke. He chuckled and turned to look at Yi Qianqian. He raised his eyebrows slightly. Maybe she treats me as her husband, but I've never treated her as my wife. You? Yi Qianqian's lungs were about to explode. She had never seen such an abominable man. How could such a guy be worthy of such a good woman as Yi Yuyu? You scum. Yuyu has liked you since you were a child, and this is how you repay her? If you don't like her, why did you marry her in the first place? Aren't you being cheap? Yi Qianqian's words were sharp.
Even the volume of his voice was not small, considering that this was a hospital.
When Shen Luoan heard this, he turned around slightly and glanced at Yi Qianqian.
Especially when he saw Yi Qianqian's furious expression, he smiled warmly like a spring breeze, but the words that came out of his mouth were hard to tell if he was praising or criticizing her.
They really are sisters. Their personalities are similar to when she was young. When Shen Luoan said this, an indescribable emotion flashed across his eyes. It seemed to be nostalgia and tenderness. But soon, he turned around and walked forward. She wanted me to marry her, so I married her. I owe her that. The current Yi Yuyu was much more hypocritical than her. She was becoming more and more of a hypocrite. Chapter 1233.
Did I not take responsibility?
Shen Luoan stopped in his tracks and looked at Yi Qianqian with a faint smile. Yi Qianqian became even more furious. She roared, "What kind of responsibility is this? Yi Yuyu is lying inside.
I wasn't the one who asked her to lie in there.
What's the point of getting angry at me?" Shen Luoan didn't look guilty at all.
He raised his eyebrows and asked confidently. The expression on Shen Luoan's face became more and more strange when he felt the gazes from all around him.
It was a smile that was not a smile. It seemed sinister and cold. It didn't feel like he was facing his wife at all. In fact, it didn't feel like he was facing a friend. Instead, it felt like he was facing an extremely disgusting person, a person that he hated the most. I will pay for the medical fees. If you don't want to take care of me, I can hire a caregiver. Please just tell me. For a moment, Yi Qianqian didn't know what to say. To think that a husband would have such an attitude when facing his heavily injured wife. When Shen Luoan saw that she had nothing else to say, he turned around and quickly left with light footsteps. His figure was elegant and his figure was tall. Just looking at his back was enough to make people unable to come back to their senses. But why was it like this? The man Yuyu loved shouldn't be like this. Yi Qianqian was a little absent-minded. She turned around and returned to the ward. After a series of examinations, the doctors and nurses reminded Yi Qianqian of a few things to take note of and quickly left. Yi Yuyu fell asleep again. Her eyes were watery, and her face was pale. Yi Qianqian's heart ached even more. Suddenly, the cell phone in her pocket rang. Yi Qianqian was shocked. She quickly grabbed her phone and walked out. It was Shen Jilia. When Yi Qianqian saw Shen Jilia, she couldn't help but feel angry. Shen Luoan and Shen Jilia were brothers. Yi Qianqian picked up the phone in a huff and snapped, "What is it?" Shen Jilia was baffled by the roar. He was stunned for a moment before he asked, "How is my sister-in-law now? Is it serious?" When Yi Qianqian heard that, she laughed angrily. "So, you still know that she's your sister-in-law? Do you know what your sister-in-law has just gone through? Do you know what your good brother told me? Why is there such a big gap between the Shen family? Tell me. I think you're still a decent person, but why is your brother like this?" Bah, scum. Scum. Bastard. Beast. Scumbag. The more Yi Qianqian scolded him, the more fervent she became. In the end, she was so angry that she stomped her foot and yelled, "I'm so angry." Shen Jilia was baffled by the scolding,
but at the same time, he found Yi Qianqian inexplicably adorable. He couldn't help but burst out laughing. Unexpectedly, it made Yi Qianqian even more displeased. "What are you laughing at, you beast? You're not a good thing either. Hey. It's one thing for you to scold my brother, but what you're doing is implicating the innocent." "What did I do? You've wronged me," Shenjilia shouted. "What happened? How is my sister-in-law doing?" Yi Qianqian angrily recounted everything that Yi Yuyu had said to her, as well as Shen Luo'an's attitude toward her. The more she spoke, the angrier she became. She was on the verge of scratching the wall. When Shenjilia heard that, he coughed lightly and said, "My brother didn't particularly like my sister-in-law to begin with, so therefore he was not surprised at all that she would say such a thing." Chapter 1234. What she said. Shen Luo'an was his brother. Shen Jilia felt that she was scolding him when he heard her scolding him so righteously. However, Shen Jilia couldn't say a word. After all, Shen Luo'an didn't treat Yi Yuyu very well. Yes. Don't be angry. How is she now?" Shen Jilia quickly changed the topic to Yi Yuyu. After they chatted for a while, Shen Jilia hung up the phone. Yu Lily clearly saw Shen Jilia breathe a sigh of relief when he hung up the phone. The table was full of dishes, and old Mrs. Shen ate them with relish. Now the four of them were sitting at a small round table, facing each other. Yu Lily and old Mrs. Shen sat on one side, and Oming and Shenjilia sat on the other. Old Mrs. Shen was eating when she noticed that Shenjilia had hung up the phone. She asked, "How is the girl now?" "She seems to have a concussion, and her hand is fractured, but it's not particularly serious. She should be discharged in a few days." "How could it be so serious? Isn't she a big star? Isn't she just filming all day? Why is she in such danger?" "Grandma, it's not that simple. Don't those big stars always fly around the mountain? They all need to hang a wire. This time, sister-in-law accidentally fell from the wire, and that's why she was injured." Shen Jilia put food in the old lady's bowl and said, "Nothing is easy." Old Mrs. Shen ate and asked, "Where is she?" "Did your brother go?" "Yes. He paid the medical fees and left." Shen Jilia also heard it from Yi Qianqian. He felt a little sympathy for Yi Yuyu. When old Mrs. Shen heard this, she sighed and said, "What a sin." "Isn't it a sin? Yi Yuyu was injured, but Shen Luo'an only paid the medical fees and left. Moreover, the capital was only a 2-hour drive from H City, but he waited until noon the next day. Yu Lily didn't know about their family affairs, so she didn't interrupt. She put some food in Oming's bowl and lowered her head to eat in silence. Shen Jilia clearly saw Yu Lily's actions, and his eyes were a little sad. This woman still couldn't let go of Oming, right? No matter how Oming treated her, there was only one man in her heart. Shen Jilia felt a little frustrated. He also picked up a few chopsticks and put them in Oming's bowl. He said, "Eat more. Don't be picky. I'll take you back to Kingstown after eating." Oming didn't say anything. He pretended not to notice Shen Jilia's deliberate behavior. He picked up his chopsticks and continued eating. "Is your hand better?" Yu Lily asked. Oming's hand, which was holding the chopsticks, paused for a moment. He quickly put down the chopsticks, spread out his palm and said, "It hurts. I think I have a blister." When Yu Lily looked over, Shen Jilia felt displeased. He reached out and slapped Oming's hand away. "Eat your food. You're a big man. What's the point of being sentimental? It's fine as long as you can use it." Oming curled his lips and said, "You're jealous." "Jealous my ass. Let's eat." Shen Jilia shoved his chopsticks into Oming's hands. He was extremely unhappy. Chapter 1235. Oming had already expected this. Shen Jilia couldn't wait to send him away. When he heard this, Oming wasn't surprised at all. Oming calmly sat where he was and said, "Actually, someone has already come to pick me up. You can ask Yu Ruoxin to contact Uncle One. Since they're here to pick you up, why would they contact Lily? Can't you contact them yourself?"
Xueqi clearly didn't believe him. I don't remember his number. I don't have a phone, Ming said matter-of-factly. When Xueqi heard that, he looked at Ming with a faint smile. He picked up his phone and sent a text to Lily right in front of Ming. Ming said he wanted to contact Uncle Wen. Send me Uncle Wen's phone number. When Lily saw that, she didn't suspect anything and immediately sent the number over. When Ming saw this, he had a new understanding of this. This fellow was so cunning. After Xueqi called Wen Fenglin, he handed the phone to Ming. Ming took it and called out, Uncle Wen. Xiao, how are you getting along with Lily? It's pretty good, but Uncle Wen, where are you now? I'll let Lily take me to you, and then we'll go back to Kingstown together. Oh, that's good. Wen Fenglin gave them the address. It was at the Art Association in N City. After hanging up the phone, Ming could clearly sense Xueqi's displeasure. But he still pretended not to know and said, Call Lily and ask her to take me there. I'll take you there. My grandmother likes Lily very much. Let them play for a while longer. Yes, I can see that your grandmother is planning to change her surname from Yu to Shen, right? Take her in as an adopted granddaughter or something. Of course not. Even if you change your surname, it will be recorded in my household register. The meaning of these words couldn't be any clearer. However, when Ming heard that, he laughed and said, It should be noon now, right? Are you sleepwalking? Xueqi's eyes turned cold. Just wait and see. Lily won't choose you again. Sooner or later, I'll deal with her. Can you handle it? Ming raised his eyebrows. His eyes were unfocused as he looked ahead, but his smile was bright. Xueqi decided to ignore him. He stood up and left. She had no intention of taking Ming with her. Ming pretended not to know and sat in the same place, listening to the movements around him. Just wait. Lily will be back. Xueqi was digging his own grave by leaving a blind man like him there. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, Xueqi returned with an angry look on his face and demanded, Why didn't you follow me? When did you leave? When Xueqi heard this rhetorical question, he didn't know what to say. The sound of light footsteps came from behind him. It was very familiar. Xueqi turned around. It was you, Lily. When she saw Xueqi, she said, Grandma is alone in the room. You go and keep her company. I'll take him to Uncle Wen. Xueqi nodded and said, Yes, Grandma is alone in the room. So, they still had to be alone? How could this be? Xueqi quickly said, I'll go with you. You stay here with Grandma. I'll bring him to the Art Association to find Uncle Wen. I'll be back soon. Lily looked at Xueqi and said, Grandma is getting on in years, so it's better that she doesn't follow us around. I just told Grandma that I would bring a cake back. You can bring a piece back. I'm leaving now. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.